Years after abandoning them, Billionaire CEO breaks down in tears seeing single dad and triplets in an unexpected encounter. She had built a pharmaceutical empire worth $3 billion, but when she saw him across the crowded gala, older, tired, but still the man she'd loved, holding a tray instead of her hand, Adriana Castellanos realized she had become the wealthiest woman in America and the poorest mother in the world. But that moment was still ours. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I'm bringing you another story just as interesting and unforgettable as this one. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, let me tell you about the woman who had everything, and the man who had what mattered most. The 45th floor of the Chrysler Building had been transformed into a temple of modern medicine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of Manhattan's awakening skyline, while the morning sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floors. Adriana Castellanos stood before those windows, a silhouette against the city she had conquered. At 45, she was still striking, her Colombian heritage evident in her olive skin and dark eyes, though silver now threaded through her black hair, pulled back in a precise chignon. She wore a tailored navy Armani suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her posture spoke of someone who had never learned to surrender. "Mrs. Castellanos?" Her assistant's voice cut through the morning silence. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Adriana didn't turn from the window. Down below, thousands of people hurried to work, carrying coffee cups and morning newspapers, living lives that seemed impossibly small from this height. She used to be one of them. Before the patents, before the IPO, before Forbes magazine called her the Molecule Queen and put her on their cover. "Cancel my lunch with the Japanese investors," she said, her voice carrying the faintest trace of an accent she'd spent years perfecting away. "Move the FDA call to 3:30. "Yes, ma'am. And your mother called again. She wanted to remind you about." "I know what she wanted to remind me about." Adriana's reflection in the window showed a woman who had mastered the art of emotional control. "Tell her I'll try to make it." October 15th. She didn't need reminders. Some dates carve themselves into your soul, no matter how many board meetings you scheduled to avoid thinking about them. The elevator doors opened with a whisper, and her executive team filed in like a well-orchestrated army. Charts and projections filled the conference room as they discussed quarterly earnings, patent approvals, and market expansion. Numbers that would make shareholders weep with joy. "Our new diabetes medication has shown remarkable results in trials," Dr. Peterson reported, his voice animated with scientific excitement. "We're looking at a potential $2 billion market." "And the side effects?" Adriana asked, though she already knew the answer. "Minimal. The worst we've seen is mild nausea in 3% of patients." 3%. She had built her empire on percentages, on acceptable risks, on the greater good. 3% was nothing. Statistically insignificant. Just numbers on a spreadsheet. But sometimes, late at night in her empty penthouse, she wondered what percentage she represented. What were the odds that a mother could abandon her children and still call herself human? "Move forward with the FDA submission," she decided. "I want this on the market by Christmas." The meeting continued for another hour, but Adriana's mind wandered to the charity gala tonight. Another obligation, another chance to write a check and feel like she was making a difference. The Lincoln Center event would raise money for children's hospitals, a cause that always made her chest tighten with something she refused to name. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Los niños preguntan por ti otra vez." "The children asked about you again." Adriana deleted the message without responding. She had learned long ago that some wounds only stopped bleeding if you refused to acknowledge them. 12 miles away, Daniel Rodriguez was living through his own version of morning chaos, and it sounded like a symphony of burnt toast, missing backpacks, and sibling arguments. "Miguel, give Isabella her hairbrush back," Daniel called from the kitchen, where he was simultaneously packing 3 lunch boxes, checking 3 different homework assignments, and trying to explain to Sophia why she couldn't wear her Halloween costume to school in October. "But it's almost Halloween," Sophia protested, her dark eyes, so much like her mother's, blazing with 12-year-old indignation. She wore a bright purple sweater that brought out the warmth in her brown skin, her father's careful choice to make sure she felt beautiful every day. "3 weeks early is not almost," Daniel replied, though he was smiling. At 48, he still had the same gentle demeanor that had made him irresistible to a certain pharmaceutical student 15 years ago, though now worry lines framed his brown eyes and gray touched his temples. He wore a simple white button-down shirt and dark jeans, practical clothes for a man who had learned to prioritize function over fashion. The apartment was small but filled with love. Family photos covered every surface: school plays, birthday parties, soccer games. A museum of memories that told the story of a family that had learned to be whole despite missing a piece. The walls were painted in warm yellows and oranges, colors that made the cramped space feel like a home. "Dad, I can't find my science project," Miguel announced, appearing in the doorway with his backpack hanging open and his red t-shirt already wrinkled. He was the analytical one, the problem solver, the one who asked too many questions about why some families had 2 parents and others had 1. "Check under your bed," Daniel suggested, though he was already moving toward the hallway. "And brush your teeth." Isabella emerged from the bathroom, her long black hair finally tamed into 2 neat braids. She wore a bright yellow dress that made her look like a sunflower, and she was the peacemaker of the family, the one who hugged everyone when tensions ran high. "I found Miguel's project," she announced proudly. "It was in the refrigerator." "The refrigerator?" Daniel asked. "He was testing temperature effects on plant growth," Isabella explained patiently. "Remember." Daniel did remember. He remembered everything about his children, their dreams, their fears, their favorite foods, their least favorite subjects. He had become a master of remembering because he was the only one there to do it. "Okay, everyone grab your lunch boxes," he called, checking his watch. "We've got 15 minutes before the school bus." As the children gathered their belongings, Daniel caught a glimpse of himself in the hallway mirror. He looked tired, not just morning tired, but soul tired. The kind of exhaustion that came from being everything to everyone, from being both mother and father, from carrying the weight of 3 young lives on shoulders that sometimes felt too narrow for the job. His phone buzzed with a text from his catering company supervisor. "Big event tonight at Lincoln Center. Need all hands. Can you work late?" Daniel hesitated. Tonight was October 15th, and he had planned to take the kids for pizza and let them stay up late watching movies. It was their tradition on this date, a way to turn a day of sad memories into something that felt like celebration. But the Lincoln Center job paid double overtime, and Miguel needed new shoes, and Isabella's violin lessons weren't free, and Sophia had been asking about summer camp. "I'll be there," he texted back. "Dad, are you okay?" Sophia asked, studying his face with the perceptiveness that sometimes made him forget she was only 12. "I'm fine, mija," he said, kneeling down to her level. "Just thinking about work." "Is it about money again?" Miguel asked, and Daniel felt his heart clench. His children were too young to worry about money, but they were old enough to notice when their father's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's about taking care of you 3, Daniel said, pulling them into a group hug. "And that's a job I wouldn't trade for anything in the world." As they walked to the bus stop, Daniel found himself thinking about the woman who had given him these 3 perfect children and then decided they weren't worth staying for. He tried not to think about her. It was a rule he'd made for himself years ago. But on days like today, when the calendar seemed to mock him with its significance, the memories had a way of surfacing. He wondered if she ever thought about them, if she knew that Miguel had inherited her brilliant mind, that Isabella had her gift for languages, that Sophia had her fierce determination. He wondered if she cared that tonight, while he was serving champagne to Manhattan's elite, their children would be staying with their grandmother, disappointed that their father had to work on their special day. The school bus arrived with a wheeze of brakes and a cloud of exhaust. Daniel kissed each of his children goodbye, watching as they climbed aboard and found their seats. Sophia pressed her face to the window and waved until the bus disappeared around the corner. Standing alone on the sidewalk, Daniel felt the familiar ache in his chest. He had built a good life for his children, not perfect, but good. They were healthy, happy, and loved. They had everything they needed. Everything except the woman who had given them life and then walked away. As he headed back to the apartment to get ready for his own work day, Daniel had no idea that in 12 hours, he would be standing in the same room as the woman who had haunted his dreams for over a decade. He had no idea that tonight, everything would change. But perhaps that was for the best. Some encounters with destiny require us to walk into them blind, unprepared for the moment when the past and present collide with the force of a freight train. The David H. Koch Theater glittered like a jewel against the October night, its modernist architecture softened by thousands of warm lights that turned the plaza into something magical. New York's elite had gathered for the annual Children's Hospital Foundation Gala, a who's who of Manhattan society dressed in their finest, ready to write checks that would ease their consciences and fill their social media feeds. Adriana stepped out of her black Mercedes, her emerald green evening gown catching the light like liquid silk. The dress was a masterpiece of Italian craftsmanship, cut to perfection, with a neckline that was elegant rather than revealing. Diamond earrings that had once belonged to a Spanish duchess caught the camera flashes as photographers called her name. Mrs. Castellanos, over here. How much are you donating tonight? Any comment on the new diabetes drug approval? She smiled the smile she had perfected over years of board meetings and press conferences, warm enough to seem genuine, distant enough to maintain mystery. This was her world now, a world of carefully choreographed appearances and calculated generosity. But as she walked up the red carpet, past the fountain where Lincoln Center's 3 venues created a perfect triangle of artistic ambition, something felt different tonight. The air carried a chill that had nothing to do with the October weather, and she found herself looking over her shoulder as if expecting to see ghosts. Inside the theater, the transformation was breathtaking. The lobby had been decorated with thousands of white roses and golden lights, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and grand. A string quartet played softly near the entrance while servers in crisp black uniforms moved through the crowd with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Adriana, Dr. Margaret Chun, the foundation's president, approached with open arms. You look absolutely stunning. Thank you for having me, Adriana replied, accepting the air kisses that were currency in this world. The decorations are beautiful. Wait until you see the silent auction. We have items that will make your head spin. A week in Tuscany, a private concert with the Philharmonic, original artwork from emerging artists. Adriana nodded and smiled, but her attention was already wandering. Something about tonight felt electric, charged with possibility and danger. She had learned to trust her instincts in business. They had rarely steered her wrong. But this feeling was different, personal. The ballroom doors opened at 8 o'clock, revealing a space that took everyone's breath away. The ceiling had been draped in flowing white fabric that created the illusion of clouds, while centerpieces of white orchids and baby's breath made each table look like a small garden. The stage was set for performances by children from the hospital's music therapy program, their instruments gleaming under the spotlights. Adriana found her table. She had purchased an entire table for $12,000, though she would be sitting alone. It was near the stage, a position that announced her importance while allowing her to make a graceful exit if the evening became too much. But as she settled into her chair and surveyed the room, her eyes caught on something that made her blood turn to ice water. The catering staff. They moved through the crowd like a well-choreographed dance, professional and nearly invisible. But there, near the kitchen entrance, directing a team of servers as they prepared for the main course, Daniel. He wore the same black uniform as the other staff, but even from across the room, she would have recognized the set of his shoulders, the way he moved with quiet confidence, the careful way he watched everything around him. He was thinner than she remembered, and there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but it was unmistakably him. The man she had loved, the man she had left, the father of her children. Adriana's champagne glass trembled in her hand, and she set it down before she could drop it. 12 years. 12 years since she had walked out of their apartment in Queens, leaving behind a note that explained nothing and everything. 12 years since she had chosen her career over her family, convinced she was doing the right thing. He looked up then, as if he could feel her staring, and their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Time stopped. The string quartet continued playing, the conversations continued flowing, the servers continued serving, but for Adriana and Daniel, the world had narrowed to just this moment. Recognition flickered in his dark eyes, followed by something that looked like pain. His hand tightened on the tray he was carrying, and she saw him take a small step backward, as if her presence was a physical force pushing him away. She wanted to look away, to pretend she hadn't seen him, to retreat into the safety of her carefully constructed life. But she couldn't. After 12 years of wondering, of imagining what this moment might be like, she was frozen in place, drowning in the weight of his gaze. Daniel set down his tray and said something to another server, never breaking eye contact with her. She watched him navigate through the crowd, moving with purpose now, and she realized with a mixture of terror and anticipation that he was walking toward her. Adriana. Her name on his lips was like a prayer and a curse combined. His voice was deeper than she remembered, roughened by years and responsibilities she had left him to carry alone. Daniel. She stood, her legs unsteady beneath her. Up close, she could see the changes time had carved in his face. The laugh lines were deeper, but so were the worry lines. His hands, she noticed, bore small scars that hadn't been there before. Evidence of a life lived in service to others. I didn't expect to see you here, he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely surprised. There was a wariness in his posture, like a man who had learned to be careful with his trust. I could say the same. She gestured vaguely at his uniform. You're catering tonight? It's what I do. There was no shame in his voice, but there was a quiet dignity that cut her deeper than anger would have. I run a small company. We do events throughout the city. That's wonderful. The words felt inadequate, stupid. What did you say to the man you had abandoned? How did you make small talk with the father of children you had walked away from? How are they? The question escaped before she could stop it, and she saw something flicker across his face. There. He paused, choosing his words carefully. They're good. They're healthy. There. He stopped, shaking his head. They're not your concern anymore. The words hit her like a physical blow, and she took a step back. Daniel, you look successful, he said, his eyes taking in her dress, her jewelry, the obvious wealth that surrounded her like armor. I've seen you in the magazines. Forbes, Fortune, Time. The pharmaceutical queen. It's not what you think, isn't it? His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. You got everything you wanted. The career, the money, the recognition. Was it worth it? The question hung between them like a blade, sharp and cutting. Around them, the gala continued in blissful ignorance. Laughter and conversation and the soft clink of expensive crystal. But in their bubble of painful recognition, the only sound was the thundering of Adriana's heart. You don't understand, she whispered. I believed that we'd be better off without you? Daniel's eyes were dark with old pain. That your children would be better off growing up thinking their mother didn't love them enough to stay. I was sick, Daniel. After they were born, I wasn't myself. I couldn't. She struggled for words, for explanations that had made sense in the middle of sleepless nights and crushing depression. I thought if I stayed, I would destroy them. I thought if I left, you could give them the life they deserve. And you could give yourself the life you wanted. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I gave myself the life I thought I needed to survive. There's a difference. They stood there, two people who had once shared everything, now strangers separated by years of silence and choices that couldn't be undone. The music swelled around them, children's voices joining the orchestra in a song about hope and healing, and Adriana felt something inside her chest crack open like an egg. I think about them, she said, her voice barely audible. Every day. I think about them every day. Daniel's expression softened slightly, but the wariness remained. Thinking isn't the same as being there. Thinking doesn't help with homework or bandage scraped knees or explain why their mother didn't love them enough to stay. I did love them. I do love them. The words came out in a rush, desperate and raw. I loved them so much it terrified me. I loved them so much I couldn't breathe. I loved them so much I was afraid I would break them. So you broke them instead by leaving. The truth of it hit her like a tsunami, and she felt her carefully constructed composure begin to crumble. How are they really? She asked again, and this time her voice cracked. Please, I need to know. Daniel studied her face, looking for something. Sincerity, perhaps, or genuine remorse. Whatever he found there must have satisfied him, because his posture relaxed slightly. Sophia is brilliant, he said finally. She gets straight A's and she wants to be a doctor. She asks questions about everything, and she has your determination. Miguel is the quiet one, the thinker. He loves science and building things with his hands. And Isabella, his voice softened. Isabella is the heart of our family. She takes care of everyone, makes sure no one feels left out. Do they? She swallowed hard. Do they ask about me? They used to. The simple statement carried the weight of years. When they were younger, they asked all the time, where was Mama? Why didn't she live with us? Was it their fault? Adriana felt the words like physical blows, each one a reminder of the damage she had caused. What did you tell them? I told them their mother loved them but had to go away. I told them it wasn't their fault. I told them. He paused, and she saw something vulnerable flicker across his face. I told them that sometimes adults make mistakes they can't fix. Daniel, I should get back to work. He took a step away from her, already retreating into the safety of his professional duties. Enjoy the gala. Wait. She reached out, her hand nearly touching his arm before she stopped herself. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. He looked at her for a long moment, and she saw a war playing out behind his eyes. Old love fighting with older pain, hope battling with hard-earned wisdom. I know you are. he said finally. But sorry doesn't give me back the last 12 years. Sorry doesn't explain to 3 children why their mother chose her career over them. Sorry doesn't. He shook his head. I can't do this. Not here. Not now. He turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by hundreds of people, but feeling more isolated than she had ever felt in her life. The evening continued around her. Dinner was served, speeches were made, checks were written. But Adriana moved through it all like a ghost, her mind replaying every word of their conversation, every expression that had crossed his face, every moment of recognition and pain. She had built an empire worth billions, but in 5 minutes of conversation with Daniel Rodriguez, she had been reduced to the woman she had tried so hard to forget, the mother who had run away when being a mother became too hard. As the evening wound down and the last of the guests filtered out into the October night, Adriana found herself alone in the lobby, staring at the fountain where Lincoln Center's 3 venues created their perfect triangle. She thought about triangles, about the family she had once been part of, about the perfect shape that had been broken when she decided she didn't fit. Tomorrow, she would return to her penthouse and her board meetings and her carefully ordered life. But tonight, she stood in the shadow of artistic greatness and wondered if she had built her empire on the foundation of the greatest mistake she had ever made. In the distance, she could see the catering staff loading their equipment into trucks, their work finished for the night. She looked for Daniel among them, but he was nowhere to be seen. He had vanished back into his life, back to the children who called him both mother and father, back to the world she had chosen to leave behind. But the memory of seeing him again, of looking into his eyes and seeing the man she had once loved still there beneath the scars she had caused, would follow her home. Some encounters change everything, even when they last only 5 minutes. Especially when they last only 5 minutes. The morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows of Adriana's penthouse, casting long shadows across marble floors that had never felt the footsteps of children. She sat in her silk pajamas at a dining table that could seat 12, but had never hosted a family meal, staring at her untouched breakfast while her assistant, Carmen, rattled off the day's schedule. Your 9 a.m. with the FDA representatives has been moved to 10:30, Carmen said, her voice crisp and efficient. The board meeting is confirmed for 2 p.m., and you have dinner with the investors from Tokyo at Lou Bernardine. Adriana nodded absently, her mind still trapped in the Lincoln Center ballroom, replaying every word of her conversation with Daniel. She had barely slept, spending the night pacing her empty apartment, her reflection multiplied endlessly in the windows that looked out over Central Park. Mrs. Castellanos? Carmen's voice cut through her thoughts. Did you hear about the charity auction results? What? Adriana blinked, refocusing on the present. The Children's Hospital Foundation raised $2.3 million last night. Your contribution was mentioned specifically in the Times this morning. The Times. Of course they would write about it. Everything she did was news. Every check she wrote was a headline. But none of them would mention the 5 minutes that had shattered her carefully constructed world. Cancel my morning appointments, she said suddenly. Carmen blinked in surprise. All of them? But the FDA meeting is crucial for the new drug approval. Reschedule them. Adriana stood, her decision made. I need to go somewhere. Where? Should I call your driver? No. Adriana was already moving toward her bedroom, her mind racing. I'll drive myself. The drive from Manhattan to Queens felt like traveling between different worlds. Adriana's white Tesla moved through neighborhoods that grew progressively more modest, more real, more alive with the kind of authentic energy that her sterile penthouse lacked. She had dressed carefully in dark jeans and a simple black sweater, trying to look less like the woman who had graced the cover of Forbes and more like someone who might belong in this world. But she knew she didn't belong here. She had forfeited that right 12 years ago. She parked across the street from the apartment building where she had once lived, a pre-war brick structure that had seen better days but maintained a dignity that spoke of families who cared for their homes despite their modest means. The fire escape she remembered was still there, painted black against the red brick, and she could almost see the younger version of herself hanging laundry on a line that no longer existed. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. What was she doing here? What did she hope to accomplish? Daniel had made it clear that she wasn't welcome in their lives, and she had no right to insert herself into their routine. But she couldn't leave. Not yet. At 8:15, the front door opened, and 3 children emerged, backpacks slung over their shoulders, their voices carrying across the street in the crisp morning air. Adriana's breath caught in her throat. Sophia was tall for 12, with long dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and her mother's determined stride. She wore a bright purple jacket that looked new, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew where she was going. Miguel was quieter, shorter, with Daniel's thoughtful eyes and a navy blue hoodie that had seen better days. And Isabella was sunshine in human form, her curly hair bouncing as she skipped down the steps, her yellow backpack decorated with patches and pins that spoke of a personality too big for her small frame. She was talking animatedly to her siblings, gesturing with her hands in a way that made Adriana's heart ache with recognition. Daniel appeared in the doorway, and Adriana instinctively slouched down in her seat, as if he might sense her presence from 50 yards away. He looked tired, older in the morning light than he had under the gala's flattering illumination. He was wearing work clothes, dark pants, and a button-down shirt that spoke of early morning catering prep. "Sophia, you have soccer practice after school," he called out, his voice carrying the practiced efficiency of a single parent juggling multiple schedules. "Miguel, remember your science project is due Friday." "And Isabella." "I know, Poppy." Isabella's voice was bright as bells. "Be good, work hard, and remember that I'm awesome." Daniel's laugh was warm and genuine, and Adriana felt something twist in her chest. This was their routine, their rhythm, their world. A world that had continued to turn for 12 years without her. "Have a good day at school," Daniel said, but his voice sounded strained, and Adriana wondered if he was thinking about the previous night's encounter. The children headed toward the subway station, their conversation fading as they walked. Sophia was explaining something about a history project. Miguel was nodding along, and Isabella was occasionally interjecting with observations that made her siblings laugh. They were a unit, a family, a triangle that had learned to be complete without her. Adriana sat in her car long after they had disappeared around the corner, tears she hadn't realized she was crying streaming down her face. She had imagined this moment countless times, seeing her children, watching them live their lives, but the reality was both better and worse than anything she had prepared for. They were beautiful, healthy, obviously loved. Daniel had done everything she had hoped he would do when she left. But they were also strangers to her, people with inside jokes and shared memories that she had no part in. They were her children, but they weren't hers. Her phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. FDA representatives asking about reschedule. "Should I confirm for tomorrow?" Adriana stared at the message, at the life that was waiting for her back in Manhattan. Board meetings and investor dinners and pharmaceutical empires. The life she had built on the foundation of leaving this one behind. She typed back, "Handle it. I'll be in later." The industrial kitchen was a symphony of controlled chaos. Stainless steel surfaces gleamed under fluorescent lights, and the air was filled with the sounds of chopping, stirring, and the gentle hum of commercial refrigeration units. Daniel moved through it all with the confidence of someone who had built this world from nothing, checking on prep work, tasting sauces, and coordinating with his small but dedicated staff. But his mind wasn't on the lunch event they were catering for a law firm in Midtown. His thoughts kept returning to the previous night, to the shock of seeing Adriana across the ballroom, to the way her voice had cracked when she asked about the children. "Boss, you okay?" Luis, his sous chef and closest friend, appeared at his elbow. "You've been staring at that same pan for 5 minutes." "I'm fine," Daniel lied, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. "Just thinking about the presentation for the Hernandez wedding." Luis wasn't buying it. They had worked together for 8 years, and he could read Daniel's moods like a recipe. "This have anything to do with why you came in this morning looking like you'd seen a ghost?" Daniel's hands stilled on the pan he was supposedly cleaning. "Drop it, Luis. Was it her? Did you see her?" Luis's voice was gentle but insistent. He was one of the few people who knew the whole story, who had been there during the dark months after Adriana left when Daniel had struggled to figure out how to be both mother and father to 3 infants. "She was at the gala last night." The words came out flat, matter of fact. "We talked. It's over." "What did she say? What do you think she said?" Daniel's voice was sharper than he intended. "She's sorry. She thinks about them. She had her reasons." He set down the pan harder than necessary. "Same things she said in the note she left." Luis was quiet for a moment, considering. "Maybe she meant it this time." "Luis, I'm just saying people change. Maybe she's not the same woman who walked out 12 years ago." Daniel turned to face his friend, his expression hard. "She's worth $3 billion, Luis. She's on magazine covers. She has everything she ever wanted. Why would she change? Maybe because everything she ever wanted doesn't include the 3 most important things she ever had." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow, and he had to grip the edge of the counter to steady himself. Don't do this. Don't make excuses for her." "I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying." "You're saying what? That I should let her back into their lives? That I should risk them getting hurt again?" Daniel's voice was rising, and the kitchen around them grew quiet. "They're happy, Luis. They're stable. They have a routine, they have friends, they have a life. I'm not going to let her destroy that because she suddenly feels guilty. What if she's not trying to destroy it? What if she's trying to be part of it?" Daniel stared at his friend, seeing the concern in his eyes, the genuine worry for the family that had become like his own. Luis had been there for every scraped knee, every school play, every moment when Daniel had wondered if he was enough for 3 children who deserved the world. "She made her choice," Daniel said finally. "She chose her career over her family. She chose her ambition over her children. She doesn't get to just walk back into their lives because she had a moment of regret at a fancy party. And what if she's really changed? What if she's ready to choose differently? Then she's 12 years too late." The words hung in the kitchen air like smoke, final and unforgiving. Daniel turned back to his prep work, his movements sharp and efficient, but Luis could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was clenched. "The kids ask about her sometimes," Luis said quietly. "Isabella especially. She wonders what her mama looks like now, if she's happy, if she ever thinks about them. They stopped asking years ago." "No, they didn't. They just stopped asking you because they could see how much it hurt you." Luis moved closer, his voice gentle but insistent. "Maybe this is bigger than your pain, Daniel. Maybe this is about what they need." Daniel's hands stilled on the vegetables he was chopping. "What they need is stability. What they need is to know that the people who love them won't abandon them. What they need is to know where they came from. What they need is to understand that their mother leaving wasn't about them not being good enough." "Don't." Daniel's voice was warning now. "Don't psychoanalyze my children. I'm not psychoanalyzing them. I'm telling you what I see. Isabella tries to take care of everyone because she's afraid they'll leave if she doesn't. Miguel keeps to himself because he's scared of getting too close to people. And Sophia. Luis paused. Sophia is so determined to be perfect because she thinks if she's good enough, strong enough, smart enough, maybe the people she loves won't leave. The knife in Daniel's hand clattered to the cutting board. Stop. These are the patterns I see, Daniel. These are the ways that her leaving marked them, even if they don't remember it. And you think letting her back in will fix that? You think exposing them to more abandonment will help? I think pretending their mother doesn't exist isn't protecting them. It's just postponing the conversation. Daniel leaned against the counter, his head in his hands. The kitchen around them had returned to its normal rhythm, but he felt like he was standing in the eye of a storm, with everything he had built for the past 12 years threatening to come apart. I can't, he said finally. I can't risk it. I can't risk them getting hurt again. But what if not risking it hurts them more? Adriana's corner office overlooked Madison Avenue, all glass and steel and expensive furniture that had been chosen by a designer who understood the visual language of success. She sat behind her desk, a fortress of mahogany and leather, trying to focus on the quarterly reports spread before her, but finding her mind wandering to a modest apartment in Queens where 3 children were probably eating lunch in a school cafeteria. Her assistant knocked on the door. Mrs. Castellanos? The board is asking about the morning meetings you missed. Tell them I was handling a personal matter. Should I reschedule? Carmen. Adriana's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I said I was handling a personal matter. That's all they need to know. Carmen nodded and retreated, leaving Adriana alone with her thoughts and her guilt and the crushing weight of choices that couldn't be undone. She opened her laptop and, before she could stop herself, typed Daniel Rodriguez Catering Queens into the search bar. His company's website appeared. Simple, professional, with photos of beautifully presented food and testimonials from satisfied clients. There was a photo of him on the About page, smiling at the camera with the kind of genuine warmth that had first attracted her to him all those years ago. The biography was brief. Daniel Rodriguez founded Rodriguez Catering in 2015 with a commitment to bringing restaurant-quality food to events throughout New York City. A graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, Daniel specializes in fusion cuisine that celebrates his Puerto Rican heritage while incorporating international flavors. When he's not in the kitchen, he enjoys spending time with his 3 children and volunteering at their school. 3 children. Not his children and mine. Not the children he shares with his former partner. Just his children, as if she had never existed. Which, she supposed, was exactly what she had wanted when she left. Adriana closed the laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had given her everything she thought she wanted. Somewhere out there, in a school in Queens, 3 children were living their lives without her. They were learning and growing and becoming people she would never know. People who would never know her. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Castellanos? You have a call from the Wall Street Journal. They want to discuss the new drug approval. Take a message. But it's... I said take a message. Adriana's voice was steel wrapped in silk. No calls for the rest of the day. She needed to think. She needed to decide what she was going to do with the knowledge that her children were real, that they were beautiful, that they were living their lives just a few miles away from her glass tower. She could go back to pretending they didn't exist. She could return to her carefully constructed life of board meetings and charity galas and magazine covers. She could continue to be the pharmaceutical queen who had everything except the only things that mattered. Or she could fight. She could risk everything she had built to try to reclaim what she had lost. But what if Daniel was right? What if her presence in their lives would only cause more damage? What if she was too late, too changed, too much a stranger to be anything more than a disruption? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Daniel. We need to talk. Tonight, 8 p.m. Flushing Meadows Park, near the Unisphere. Come alone." Adriana stared at the message, her heart pounding. He wanted to see her. He wanted to talk. But was it to give her a chance, or to make sure she stayed away? She typed back, "I'll be there." The die was cast. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back to the comfortable distance of the past 12 years. Tonight, she would find out if redemption was possible, or if some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Sometimes the hardest person to face is the one in the mirror. Have you ever had to confront a choice you made that changed everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. And make sure to subscribe because this emotional journey is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. The Unisphere stood silhouetted against the evening sky, its steel framework catching the last rays of daylight like a metallic constellation. Adriana arrived first, her Tesla looking out of place in the parking lot filled with older sedans and family minivans. She had changed into jeans and a wool coat, but even in casual clothes, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was wearing a costume, playing a role she had forgotten how to inhabit. The park was alive with the sounds of evening, children's laughter from the nearby playground, the distant hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves in the October breeze. She walked toward the monument, her heels clicking against the concrete pathway, each step taking her further from the world she knew and deeper into the one she had abandoned. Daniel was waiting by the fountain, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. He looked older in the harsh park lighting, more tired, but there was something in his posture that spoke of resolve. This wasn't the shocked man from the gala. This was someone who had made a decision. "You came," he said as she approached, his voice neutral but not hostile. "You asked me to." Adriana stopped a few feet away, maintaining the distance that had become their default. "Daniel, about last night. I've been thinking." He cut her off, his voice steady but strained. "About what you said. About wanting to know them." Adriana's heart lurched. And I think." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "I think maybe it's not just about what I want anymore. Maybe it's about what they need." The words hung in the air between them, fragile as autumn leaves. Adriana hardly dared to breathe. "Luis thinks they ask about you. Not directly, not to me, but—" Daniel's voice softened. "Isabella wonders if you're happy. Miguel draws pictures of families with 4 people instead of 3. And Sophia." He paused, pain flickering across his features. "Sophia tries to be perfect at everything because she thinks if she's good enough, people won't leave." "Daniel." Adriana's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I never meant." "I know." He held up a hand, stopping her apology. "I know you thought you were doing the right thing. I know you thought they'd be better off without you. But they weren't, Adriana. They weren't better off. They were just different." The admission cost him something. She could see it in the way his shoulders sagged, in the way he looked away from her toward the Unisphere. "I have a proposition," he said finally. Rodriguez Catering just got the contract for the biggest event of the year, the annual Pharmaceutical Innovation Awards. November 15th, at the Plaza Hotel. Adriana's breath caught. "That's my company's event. I'm the keynote speaker." "I know." Daniel's smile was grim. "Your assistant called yesterday to confirm the dietary restrictions for the board members. Apparently, you're allergic to shellfish now." "Still am." The words came out automatically, a glimpse of the intimacy they had once shared. "You remembered." "I remember everything." His voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "That's the problem." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of shared history settling between them like snow. "What are you proposing?" Adriana asked. "Work with me. On the event. You know what the pharmaceutical executives expect. I know how to deliver it. But more than that." He took a breath, as if gathering courage. "I want you to see what I do. I want you to understand the life I built after you left. And maybe, if you can handle working with me without running away, we can talk about what comes next." "You mean the children?" "I mean the children." Daniel's voice was firm. "But this isn't about you swooping in and playing mommy for a weekend. This is about you proving that you can be trusted with something small before I even consider letting you near something precious." The terms were clear and they stung. But Adriana had built a pharmaceutical empire. She understood negotiation. She understood earning trust through action rather than words. "What would I do? I don't know anything about catering. You know about expectations. You know about presentation. You know about making wealthy people feel important." Daniel's smile was wry. "Turns out, those are transferable skills. My board would never understand. The CEO of Castellanos Pharmaceuticals doesn't moonlight as a caterer." "Then don't tell them." Daniel's voice was matter-of-fact. "Tell them you're personally overseeing the event to ensure it meets your standards. Tell them you're hands-on with client relations. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. But if you want a chance to be part of their lives, you start by being part of mine." The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., and for the first time in years, Adriana didn't hit snooze. She dressed in dark jeans and a simple sweater, clothes that would survive a commercial kitchen, and drove through the pre-dawn Queens streets toward a world she had never imagined entering. The catering facility was a converted warehouse in an industrial section of Long Island City, sandwiched between an auto repair shop and a wholesale flower market. The neighborhood was waking up around her. Delivery trucks making their rounds, early commuters heading to the subway, the authentic energy of people who worked with their hands for a living. Daniel was already there, of course, moving through the kitchen with the fluid efficiency of someone who had found his calling. He looked up when she entered, and she saw surprise flicker across his features. "You actually came. I said I would." Adriana looked around the kitchen, taking in the gleaming surfaces, the organized chaos of prep work, the way everything had its place. "This is impressive. It's not a pharmaceutical empire, but it's mine." There was pride in his voice, but also defensiveness. "Luis, come meet our consultant." Luis emerged from the walk-in cooler, a stocky man in his 40s with kind eyes and hands that spoke of decades in professional kitchens. He looked at Adriana with curiosity but no judgment. "So you're the famous ex-wife," he said with a slight smile. "Daniel's told me a lot about you. All bad, I'm sure." Adriana's attempt at humor fell flat. The die was cast. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back to the comfortable distance of the past 12 years. Tonight, she would find out if redemption was possible, or if some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Sometimes the hardest person to face is the one in the mirror. Have you ever had to confront a choice you made that changed everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. And make sure to subscribe because this emotional journey is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. The Unisphere stood silhouetted against the evening sky, its steel framework catching the last rays of daylight like a metallic constellation. Adriana arrived first, her Tesla looking out of place in the parking lot filled with older sedans and family minivans. She had changed into jeans and a wool coat, but even in casual clothes, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was wearing a costume, playing a role she had forgotten how to inhabit. The park was alive with the sounds of evening, children's laughter from the nearby playground, the distant hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves in the October breeze. She walked toward the monument, her heels clicking against the concrete pathway, each step taking her further from the world she knew and deeper into the one she had abandoned. Daniel was waiting by the fountain, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. He looked older in the harsh park lighting, more tired, but there was something in his posture that spoke of resolve. This wasn't the shocked man from the gala. This was someone who had made a decision. "You came," he said as she approached, his voice neutral but not hostile. "You asked me to." Adriana stopped a few feet away, maintaining the distance that had become their default. "Daniel, about last night. I've been thinking." He cut her off, his voice steady but strained. "About what you said. About wanting to know them." Adriana's heart lurched. And I think." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "I think maybe it's not just about what I want anymore. Maybe it's about what they need." The words hung in the air between them, fragile as autumn leaves. Adriana hardly dared to breathe. "Luis thinks they ask about you. Not directly, not to me, but—" Daniel's voice softened. "Isabella wonders if you're happy. Miguel draws pictures of families with 4 people instead of 3. And Sophia." He paused, pain flickering across his features. "Sophia tries to be perfect at everything because she thinks if she's good enough, people won't leave." "Daniel." Adriana's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I never meant." "I know." He held up a hand, stopping her apology. "I know you thought you were doing the right thing. I know you thought they'd be better off without you. But they weren't, Adriana. They weren't better off. They were just different." The admission cost him something. She could see it in the way his shoulders sagged, in the way he looked away from her toward the unisphere. "I have a proposition," he said finally. "Rodriguez Catering just got the contract for the biggest event of the year, the annual Pharmaceutical Innovation Awards, November 15th, at the Plaza Hotel." Adriana's breath caught. "That's my company's event. I'm the keynote speaker." "I know." Daniel's smile was grim. "Your assistant called yesterday to confirm the dietary restrictions for the board members. Apparently you're allergic to shellfish now." "Still am." The words came out automatically, a glimpse of the intimacy they had once shared. "You remembered." "I remember everything." His voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "That's the problem." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of shared history settling between them like snow. "What are you proposing?" Adriana asked. "Work with me. On the event. You know what the pharmaceutical executives expect. I know how to deliver it. But more than that." He took a breath, as if gathering courage. "I want you to see what I do. I want you to understand the life I built after you left. And maybe, if you can handle working with me without running away, we can talk about what comes next." "You mean the children?" "I mean the children." Daniel's voice was firm. "But this isn't about you swooping in and playing mommy for a weekend. This is about you proving that you can be trusted with something small before I even consider letting you near something precious." The terms were clear and they stung. But Adriana had built a pharmaceutical empire. She understood negotiation. She understood earning trust through action rather than words. "What would I do? I don't know anything about catering. You know about expectations. You know about presentation. You know about making wealthy people feel important." Daniel's smile was wry. "Turns out, those are transferable skills. My board would never understand. The CEO of Castellanos Pharmaceuticals doesn't moonlight as a caterer." "Then don't tell them." Daniel's voice was matter-of-fact. "Tell them you're personally overseeing the event to ensure it meets your standards. Tell them you're hands-on with client relations. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. But if you want a chance to be part of their lives, you start by being part of mine." The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., and for the first time in years, Adriana didn't hit snooze. She dressed in dark jeans and a simple sweater, clothes that would survive a commercial kitchen, and drove through the pre-dawn Queens streets toward a world she had never imagined entering. The catering facility was a converted warehouse in an industrial section of Long Island City, sandwiched between an auto repair shop and a wholesale flower market. The neighborhood was waking up around her. Delivery trucks making their rounds, early commuters heading to the subway, the authentic energy of people who worked with their hands for a living. Daniel was already there, of course, moving through the kitchen with the fluid efficiency of someone who had found his calling. He looked up when she entered, and she saw surprise flicker across his features. "You actually came. I said I would." Adriana looked around the kitchen, taking in the gleaming surfaces, the organized chaos of prep work, the way everything had its place. "This is impressive. It's not a pharmaceutical empire, but it's mine." There was pride in his voice, but also defensiveness. "Luis, come meet our consultant." Luis emerged from the walk-in cooler, a stocky man in his 40s with kind eyes and hands that spoke of decades in professional kitchens. He looked at Adriana with curiosity but no judgment. "So you're the famous ex-wife," he said with a slight smile. "Daniel's told me a lot about you. All bad, I'm sure." Adriana's attempt at humor fell flat. "Actually, no." Luis's expression grew serious. "Mostly sad. But maybe that's about to change." The morning started with coffee and a briefing about the pharmaceutical awards event. 400 guests, 7 courses, wine pairings, and enough dietary restrictions to require a separate database. Adriana found herself drawn into the logistics, her corporate mind engaging with the complexity of the operation. "The seating arrangement is crucial," she explained, studying the guest list. "Dr. Harrison from the FDA can't be seated near anyone from Meridian Pharmaceuticals. There's an ongoing investigation. And the Japanese delegation expects to be seated according to seniority, not alphabetical order." Daniel was taking notes, his pen moving quickly across the paper. "What about the presentation? I know you're the keynote speaker, but what are you going to talk about?" Adriana paused, considering. "Innovation in pharmaceutical research, the future of personalized medicine, the usual things." She looked at him. "Why?" "Because I need to understand the tone of the evening. Are you inspiring them? Challenging them? Selling them something?" "All of the above." Adriana found herself smiling, the first genuine smile she had felt in days. "You really think about every detail, don't you?" "I have to. When you're feeding 400 people, there's no room for error." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the prep crew, a diverse group of line cooks, servers, and kitchen assistants who moved with the coordinated precision of a well-rehearsed orchestra. Daniel introduced her as our consultant for the pharmaceutical event, and she could see the curiosity in their eyes, the unspoken questions about who she was and why she was there. "All right, everyone," Daniel called out, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned his position through competence rather than inheritance. "We have 3 weeks to perfect this menu. The client is expecting perfection, and we're going to deliver it." The morning flew by in a blur of tastings, adjustments, and detailed planning. Adriana found herself in the strange position of being both student and teacher, learning the rhythms of the kitchen while contributing her knowledge of the pharmaceutical world. "Try this," Luis said, appearing at her elbow with a spoon. "It's the amuse-bouche for the first course." The bite was perfect, a delicate balance of flavors that spoke of skill and creativity. "It's incredible," Adriana said, meaning it. "How did you know to pair the truffle with the pear?" 25 years of making mistakes," Luis said with a grin. "You learn to trust your instincts." "Something I never learned to do," Adriana murmured. more to herself than to him. It's never too late to start. The lunch rush brought a different energy to the kitchen. Orders for smaller events flowed in, a corporate lunch for 50, a wedding reception for 80, a birthday party for a local family. Adriana watched Daniel coordinate it all with the calm confidence of someone who had found his element. "Phone," Carmen called out, holding up Adriana's constantly buzzing device. "It's the board. They want to know about the morning meetings you missed." Adriana glanced at Daniel, who was focused on plating the corporate lunch order. "Tell them I'm in a strategic planning session. Off-site. They want specifics." "Carmen." Adriana's voice carried the authority that had built her empire. "Handle it." As her assistant retreated to make the call, Adriana found herself wondering when she had started to feel more present in this industrial kitchen than in her marble and glass boardroom. "You're good at this," Daniel said, appearing beside her with a plate of the lunch special. "The delegation, the politics, the personalities. I forgot how well you understand people." "I understand pharmaceutical executives. I'm not sure that counts as understanding people." "It counts." Daniel's voice was softer now, more personal. "You always were good at reading a room, figuring out what people needed to hear. Except when it came to you." The words slipped out before she could stop them. "I never figured out what you needed to hear." Daniel set down the plate and looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the gala. "You needed to hear that it was okay to be scared, that it was okay to not have all the answers, that being a mother didn't mean being perfect." "I was drowning, Daniel. The postpartum depression, the pressure from my research, the way everyone looked at me like I should just naturally know how to take care of 3 babies. Adriana's voice cracked. "I thought you'd all be better off without me." "We weren't better off. We were just different." Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. "The kids learned to be independent because they had to. They learned to take care of each other because I couldn't be everything to everyone. They learned to be strong because they didn't have a choice." "And you? What did you learn?" "I learned that love is about showing up, even when you don't know what you're doing. I learned that being present matters more than being perfect." He paused, his eyes searching her face. "I learned that some wounds take longer to heal than others." The kitchen continued its busy rhythm around them, but in that moment, they were alone with the weight of 12 years of separation and the fragile possibility of something new. "The kids get home from school at 3:30, Daniel said suddenly. Would you like to see them?" "Not meet them, not yet. Just see them." Adriana's heart stopped. "Are you sure?" "No." Daniel's honesty was brutal and beautiful. "I'm not sure about anything, but maybe that's okay. Maybe being sure is overrated." The elementary school was a brick building that had seen better days but radiated the kind of warmth that came from being filled with children and teachers who cared about them. Adriana sat in Daniel's van across the street, her hands trembling with nerves she hadn't felt since her first board presentation. "There," Daniel said softly, pointing toward the school entrance. "The one in the purple jacket. That's Sophia." Adriana's daughter emerged from the building with the confident stride of someone who knew her own mind. She was tall for her age, with long dark hair and an expression that was serious but not sad. She wore her backpack with military precision and seemed to be organizing her siblings with the efficiency of a natural leader. "She's beautiful," Adriana whispered. "She's brilliant," Daniel said with unmistakable pride. "Straight A's, student council soccer team. She wants to be a doctor. Like you wanted to be. Like I wanted to be before I found cooking." Daniel's voice was warm. "She's got your focus, your determination. But she's also got something you never had." "What's that?" "The ability to ask for help when she needs it." Miguel appeared next, quieter than his sister, with Daniel's thoughtful eyes and a worn navy hoodie. He walked with his head down, lost in thought, occasionally looking up to respond to something Sophia said. "He's an artist," Daniel explained. "Draws constantly. His room is covered with sketches, buildings, people, imaginary worlds. He sees things differently than other kids. He looks lonely. He's selective. He has a few close friends, but he's not interested in being popular. He's like you in that way. He knows what he wants and doesn't care what other people think." And then Isabella burst through the doors like a small tornado, her curly hair bouncing as she ran to catch up with her siblings. She was talking animatedly, her hands gesturing, her yellow backpack covered in patches and pins that spoke of a personality too big for her small frame. "Isabella?" Adriana breathed, and the name felt like a prayer. "She's sunshine," Daniel said, his voice full of love. "She makes friends with everyone, the cafeteria workers, the janitor, the kids who sit alone at lunch. She's got this incredible ability to make people feel seen." "She's like you," Adriana said, watching her youngest daughter link arms with both siblings as they walked toward the bus stop. "She's got your heart." "She's got her own heart," Daniel corrected. "That's what makes her special." They watched as the three children boarded the bus, their voices carrying across the street in a symphony of sibling conversation. Isabella waved at someone through the window. Miguel was already pulling out a sketchbook, and Sophia was reviewing what looked like homework. "They're amazing," Adriana said, tears streaming down her face. "They're absolutely amazing." "They're yours," Daniel said quietly. "They're ours. And maybe it's time to figure out what that means." The afternoon brought a different kind of energy as the team prepared for the evening's events. Adriana found herself drawn into the rhythm of the kitchen, her corporate skills translating surprisingly well to the logistical challenges of catering. "The wine distributor is running late," one of the servers announced. "The client is expecting the champagne service to start at 6:30. "Call the backup supplier," Adriana said without thinking. "We used them for the board retreat last month. They deliver same day if you mention the Castellanos account." Daniel looked at her with surprise. "You remember their number?" "I remember everything that might be useful." Adriana was already dialing. "This is Adriana Castellanos. I need a favor." The conversation was brief, efficient, and effective. Within minutes, the wine crisis was resolved, and the kitchen was back on track. "That was impressive," Louise said, appearing at her elbow. "You just saved us from a very unhappy client." "I just made a phone call." "You made the right phone call at the right time with the right authority. That's leadership." Adriana looked around the kitchen, at the organized chaos, the skilled hands, the focused energy, and realized that this felt more like leadership than anything she had done in her corporate boardroom in months. "Daniel," she said, finding him at the prep station. "I want to help with the pharmaceutical event. Really help, not just consult. I want to be part of this." "Are you sure?" "It's going to mean long hours, physical work, no executive assistants to handle the details." "I'm sure." Adriana's voice was steady, confident. "I want to learn. I want to understand what you built. I want to be part of something real." Daniel studied her face, searching for something. "This isn't a game, Adriana. This isn't corporate team building. This is my livelihood, my reputation, my life's work." "I know." Adriana met his gaze directly. "And I want to honor that. I want to be worthy of it." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. This wasn't just about catering an event. This was about proving that she could be trusted with something precious, something that mattered, something that belonged to the life she had walked away from. "All right," Daniel said finally, "but you follow my lead. You do exactly what I tell you to do." And if you can't handle it, if you decide this isn't for you, you walk away clean. No drama. No explanations. No trying to insert yourself into our lives. Understood. And Adriana? Daniel's voice was soft but serious. This isn't about proving anything to me. This is about proving something to yourself. This is about figuring out who you are when you're not hiding behind your empire. The evening's first event was a corporate anniversary party for a law firm. 200 guests, cocktail service, and enough legal egos to power a small city. Adriana found herself in the strange position of being behind the scenes instead of in front of them, watching the careful choreography of service from the kitchen side. "Table 7 needs more champagne," Daniel called out, his voice carrying over the organized chaos. "And someone needs to check on the dietary restrictions for the partners' table." Adriana was assigned to the simplest tasks: arranging garnishes, filling water glasses, staying out of the way of the experienced staff. But even the simple tasks required coordination, timing, and attention to detail that she found surprisingly challenging. "You're doing fine," Luis said, appearing beside her with a tray of canapés. "Just remember to breathe." "I run a $3 billion company," Adriana said, more to herself than to him. "Why is arranging parsley so difficult?" "Because running a company is about making decisions. This is about execution. Different skills, different pressure." As the evening progressed, Adriana began to understand the rhythm of service, the way each team member's role contributed to the whole. She watched Daniel move through the event with quiet confidence, solving problems before they became crises, ensuring that every guest felt attended to without ever drawing attention to himself. "He's good at this," she said to Luis during a brief lull. "He's great at this. But more than that, he loves it. He loves making people happy, creating experiences, bringing people together." Luis paused, studying her face. "It's not about the money for him. It's about the connection." "I forgot that about him," Adriana admitted. "I forgot that he always cared more about the people than the profit. Maybe that's why he's willing to give you another chance, because he still cares more about the people than the profit." The event was over, the clients were happy, and the kitchen was in the familiar chaos of cleanup. Adriana's feet ached, her back was sore, and she was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with mental fatigue and everything to do with honest physical work. "Not bad for a first day," Daniel said, appearing beside her as she wiped down serving trays. "How do you feel?" "Tired, overwhelmed, but—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Useful. I feel useful." "That's the addiction," Daniel said with a smile. "The feeling that what you're doing matters, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. Is that why you chose this? After everything." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his hands working automatically as he cleaned. "I chose this because I needed to build something that was mine, something that couldn't be taken away from me, something that would be there for the kids no matter what." "And now? Is it still about security?" "Now it's about joy. It's about creating moments that matter. It's about—" He gestured around the kitchen. "It's about this team, this work, this feeling that we're all part of something good." Adriana nodded, understanding more than she had expected to. "Daniel, about the children." "Not yet." His voice was gentle but firm. "First, we see if you can handle this. If you can show up, day after day, without running away when things get difficult. If you can be part of something without needing to control it. And if I can, then we'll talk about the next step. But this isn't about grand gestures, Adriana. This isn't about swooping in with your checkbook and fixing everything. This is about showing up. This is about being present. This is about proving that you can be trusted with something precious." As they finished the cleanup, Adriana found herself thinking about the children getting ready for bed in their apartment in Queens. Sophia probably doing homework with characteristic focus. Miguel sketching in his room. Isabella chattering about her day until Daniel reminded her it was time to sleep. A routine. A rhythm. A life that had continued for 12 years without her. But maybe, if she could prove herself worthy, there might be room for one more. The hardest bridges to rebuild are the ones you burned yourself. But sometimes, the most beautiful structures are built on the foundations of the old ones. What bridges are you working to rebuild in your own life? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe because this story is about to take an emotional turn that will change everything. The school gymnasium had been transformed into a gallery, children's artwork covering every available wall space in a riot of color and creativity. Adriana stood at the entrance, her heart hammering against her ribs as she watched families move through the displays. Parents pointing proudly at their children's work, grandparents taking photos, siblings running between the exhibits with the boundless energy of youth. She had come alone, despite Daniel's invitation to accompany him. This felt too raw, too personal to share, even with him. She needed to see her children's world through her own eyes first, to understand the pieces of their lives that existed without her. Miguel Rodriguez, grade 6, read the placard beside a series of charcoal drawings that made her breath catch. The sketches were sophisticated beyond his years. A lone figure sitting on a park bench, a woman in a business suit with her back turned, a family of 4 with one figure drawn in lighter strokes, as if she were fading away. He's talented, isn't he? Adriana turned to find Mrs. Chun, Miguel's art teacher, standing beside her with a knowing smile. The woman was in her 60s, with silver hair and paint-stained fingers that spoke of a lifetime devoted to nurturing young creativity. Yes, Adriana managed, her voice barely audible. He is. Miguel has a gift for expressing emotion through his art. This series he calls The Missing Piece. He's been working on it all semester. Mrs. Chun studied Adriana's face carefully. Are you family? I don't think we've met. Adriana struggled with the words. I'm their mother. Understanding dawned in Mrs. Chen's eyes, followed by something that looked like compassion rather than judgment. I see. Miguel talks about his art, but he doesn't talk much about family. None of the triplets do, really. They're very protective of their father. As they should be, Adriana said quietly. He's raised them well. He has. But children need more than one parent's love, don't they? They need to understand where they come from, all of it. Mrs. Chen's voice was gentle but pointed. Miguel's art suggests he's been thinking about that missing piece for quite some time. Adriana moved to the next display, her vision blurring as she read, Sophia Rodriguez, grade 6, Academic Excellence Award. The project was a detailed poster about pharmaceutical research, complete with molecular diagrams and a timeline of drug development. The work was meticulous, professional, and heartbreakingly familiar. She wants to be a doctor, a voice said behind her. Adriana turned to find Daniel approaching, his expression unreadable. She's been researching medical schools since she was 10. She's brilliant, Adriana whispered. This work it's better than some of the presentations I see from graduate students. She researched your company for this project. Asked me about your work, about pharmaceutical development. Daniel's voice was carefully neutral. I told her what I could remember from the early days, when you used to talk about your research. You told her about me? I told her about the work, about the science, about how important it was to help people. Daniel paused, his eyes meeting hers. I never told her why you left. I never told any of them why you left. The weight of that admission settled between them. 12 years of questions, 12 years of protecting her even when she didn't deserve it. 12 years of carrying the burden of her absence alone. What did you tell them? That sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to understand. That sometimes people have to go away even when they don't want to. That you loved them but couldn't stay. And they believed that? Children believe what they need to believe to survive. Daniel's voice was soft but firm. But they're not children anymore, Adriana. They're 12 years old. They ask harder questions now. Before Adriana could respond, a burst of laughter drew their attention to the far corner of the gymnasium. Isabella stood beside a display of mixed-media collages, surrounded by classmates and their families, her animated gestures bringing her artwork to life as she explained her creative process. Isabella Rodriguez, Grade 6, Creative Expression Award, read the placard beside a stunning collage titled, "Home is where the heart is." The piece was a complex layering of photographs, fabric, and painted elements that created a warm, inviting scene of family life. But as Adriana looked closer, she noticed something that made her chest tighten. In the center of the collage, where a mother figure should be, there was an empty space filled with star patterns, as if the missing person had become part of the sky. "She says the stars represent dreams," Daniel said quietly, following her gaze. "Dreams that are far away but still there, still watching over the family. She's incredible." Adriana's voice broke. "They all are. You've raised incredible children, Daniel." "We raised incredible children," Daniel corrected gently. "The first 2 years before you left, you were their mother. You sang to them, you held them, you worried about them. That foundation is still there, even if you can't see it." "I can't remember the good parts," Adriana admitted, her voice raw with pain. "I can only remember the fear, the exhaustion, the feeling that I was failing them every day. That's the depression talking, not the truth." Daniel's voice was firm but compassionate. "But maybe it's time you learned the truth. Maybe it's time you understood what really happened, not just what you remember." The apartment was quiet, the triplets having gone to their friend Marcus's house for a sleepover. Daniel had invited Adriana over, ostensibly to discuss the pharmaceutical event planning, but she sensed there was more to the invitation than logistics. The space was small but warm, filled with the comfortable chaos of family life. Homework assignments were scattered across the kitchen table, soccer cleats sat by the door, and the refrigerator was covered with school notices, art projects, and photos that chronicled 12 years of birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments. "Coffee?" Daniel asked, moving through the familiar routines of his home. "Please." Adriana stood awkwardly in the living room, afraid to sit down, afraid to make herself too comfortable in a space that didn't belong to her anymore. "You can sit down," Daniel said, noticing her hesitation. "You're not going to break anything." She settled onto the couch, her eyes drawn to the photo albums stacked on the coffee table. "May I?" Daniel nodded, handing her a mug of coffee that smelled like home. Rich, warm, comforting in a way that her expensive espresso machine could never replicate. The first album was labeled Year 1 in Daniel's careful handwriting. Adriana opened it with trembling fingers, and the first photograph hit her like a physical blow. It was her, holding 3 tiny babies, her face glowing with exhaustion and love. She looked so young, so overwhelmed, but undeniably present. "You were a good mother," Daniel said softly, settling beside her on the couch. "The depression made you forget that, but you were a good mother." "I don't remember this," Adriana whispered, touching the photograph. "I don't remember looking that happy." "You had good days and bad days. The bad days were really bad, but the good days." Daniel turned the page, revealing more photos. Adriana feeding Isabella, Miguel sleeping on her chest, Sophia reaching for her face with tiny fingers. The good days were magical. As they moved through the album, Daniel provided narration for the life she had forgotten. This was Sophia's first smile. She was looking at you. And here Miguel's first laugh. You were making silly faces at him. He paused at a photo of all 5 of them squeezed onto the small couch, everyone looking exhausted but content. This was Christmas morning. You'd been up all night with Isabella's fever, but you insisted on making it special for them. I don't remember any of this, Adriana said, her voice thick with unshed tears. You were sick, Adriana, really sick. The postpartum depression hit you hard, and you were so afraid of being a bad mother that you couldn't see you were actually being a good one. But I left them. You left them because you thought they'd be better off without you. You left them because you were drowning and couldn't see any other way to save them from going down with you. Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. You left them because you loved them, not because you didn't. Daniel got up and walked to a bookshelf, returning with a small wooden box. I saved these, he said, opening it to reveal a collection of letters, all addressed to the children in Adriana's handwriting. You wrote them every birthday, every Christmas, every major milestone. You sent them through a lawyer, asked me not to tell them where they came from. Adriana stared at the letters, her hand shaking as she reached for one. I wrote to them? Every year. Letters about your work, your hopes for them, your regrets about leaving. Letters about how proud you were of their achievements, how much you missed them, how you hoped they were happy. Daniel's voice was soft. I never gave them the letters because I was angry, because I was hurt, because I thought they were better off not knowing. Were they better off not knowing? I don't know, Daniel admitted, but I know that keeping them from you was as much about protecting me as it was about protecting them. I was afraid that if they knew you were still thinking about them, they'd want to see you. And I was afraid that if they wanted to see you, you'd disappoint them again. I would have, Adriana said with painful honesty. If you'd given me the chance back then, I would have disappointed them. I wasn't ready. I wasn't healthy. And now I'm terrified, Adriana admitted. I'm terrified that I'll disappoint them again. I'm terrified that I'll hurt them worse than I already have. I'm terrified that I'll be a stranger to them forever. But you're here, Daniel pointed out. You're here, and you're not running away. You're working in the kitchen, you're showing up, you're trying to understand who they are instead of trying to make them fit into your world. It's not enough, Adriana said quietly. 12 years of absence can't be fixed with a few days of good behavior. No, Daniel agreed. It can't. But maybe it's a start. Daniel had left her alone with the photo albums while he prepared dinner, and Adriana found herself drawn to the later years, the photos that chronicled the life that had continued without her. Birthday parties in Chuck E. Cheese, family vacations to the Jersey Shore, school plays and soccer games, and moments of ordinary joy that she had missed entirely. The children grew up in snapshots, losing teeth, gaining inches, developing personalities that were uniquely their own. Sophia, always serious, always focused, with Daniel's determined chin and what looked like Adriana's intensity. Miguel, quieter, more introspective, with an artist's eye for beauty and detail. Isabella, effervescent, social, the glue that held her siblings together with laughter and love. They're beautiful, she said when Daniel returned with 2 plates of pasta. They're so beautiful, and I missed it all. You missed the daily stuff, Daniel said, settling beside her again. The homework battles and the sibling fights and the teenage attitude that's just starting to emerge. But you didn't miss everything, Adriana. You missed the problems as much as the joy. Tell me about the problems, she said, surprising them both. I need to know what it's really been like, not just the highlight reel. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, considering. Sophia has anxiety, high functioning, but she puts enormous pressure on herself to be perfect. She's been in therapy since she was 8 because she has panic attacks before big tests. Like I did in graduate school, Adriana said quietly. Like you did in graduate school. Miguel is incredibly sensitive. He feels everything deeply, which makes him an amazing artist but also means he gets overwhelmed easily. Loud noises, crowded spaces, emotional conflict, it all affects him. And Isabella? Isabella is sunshine, but she's also the family peacemaker. She's learned to read emotions, to defuse tension, to make everyone else feel better. Sometimes I worry that she doesn't know how to just be a kid. They all sound like they're carrying burdens that should be mine, Adriana said, the guilt in her voice unmistakable. They're carrying the burdens of being human, Daniel corrected. Every child has challenges, Adriana. Every family has problems. The difference is that our problems included your absence, but they weren't caused by your absence. How can you say that? How can you not blame me for what they've gone through? Because blame doesn't help anyone heal, Daniel said simply. Because staying angry at you meant staying angry at the mother of my children. Because forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about choosing to focus on what can be fixed instead of what can't be changed. They ate dinner surrounded by the comfortable chaos of family life, school artwork on the walls, permission slips that needed signing, a grocery list stuck to the refrigerator with alphabet magnets. The domesticity of it all was both foreign and familiar to Adriana, like visiting a country where she had once lived but no longer spoke the language. I need to tell you something, Daniel said, setting down his fork. About the night you left. Adriana's appetite disappeared. Daniel, we don't have to. Yes, we do. Because you've been carrying a story about that night for 12 years, and I don't think it's the whole story. Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. I think you need to know what really happened, not just what you remember. I remember enough, Adriana said, her voice barely audible. I remember the fight. I remember saying terrible things. I remember packing my bags and walking out. You remember the fight. But do you remember why we were fighting? Because I was a terrible mother. Because I couldn't handle the children. Because I was selfish and ambitious and... Because you were sick, Daniel interrupted. Because you hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time in months. Because you were so exhausted you were hallucinating. Because you were convinced that every cry meant you were failing them. I was failing them. You were drowning, Daniel said firmly. And I was drowning too. I was working 2 jobs, trying to finish school, trying to take care of 3 babies and a wife who was disappearing in front of my eyes. I was 26 years old, Adriana. I didn't know how to help you. You tried. You kept trying, and I kept pushing you away. I tried, but not in the right way. I tried to fix you instead of understanding you. I tried to make you better instead of getting you help. Daniel's voice was heavy with regret. I failed you as much as you failed yourself. That's not true. It is true. The night you left, you begged me to let you go. You said you were poison, that you were hurting them just by being there. And instead of getting you to a doctor, instead of calling your sister, instead of doing anything that might have actually helped, I let you go. You didn't let me go. I left. I let you go because I was scared too. I was scared that if I forced you to stay, you'd hurt yourself. I was scared that if I called for help, they'd take the babies away. I was scared that if I admitted how bad things had gotten, it would mean I was failing as a husband and a father. The admission hung between them, heavy with 12 years of guilt and regret. We were both just kids, Adriana said finally. We were both just kids trying to raise kids. We were, and we made mistakes, both of us. But the children aren't mistakes, Adriana. They're miracles. They're the best thing we ever did together, even if we did it badly. Do you really believe that? That we can fix this? I believe that we can try. I believe that the children deserve to know their mother, and you deserve to know them. I believe that 12 years of separation doesn't have to mean a lifetime of loss. Daniel had given her permission to look through the children's rooms while he finished cleaning up dinner. Sophia's room was exactly what Adriana would have expected. Organized, purposeful, with a desk covered in perfectly arranged school supplies and a bookshelf filled with advanced science textbooks alongside young adult novels. But it was the small details that broke her heart. A framed photo of the family of 4 on Sophia's nightstand, with Adriana's face carefully cut out and replaced with a drawing of a woman in a white coat. A doctor, maybe, or a scientist. A collection of pharmaceutical journals, obviously purchased with allowance money, with articles about drug development highlighted in precise yellow strokes. "She's trying to understand you," Daniel said from the doorway. "She's trying to understand why someone would choose science over family. And what conclusion has she reached? That it must be pretty important work to be worth leaving your children for." The words hit Adriana like a physical blow. Oh God, she thinks I left because my work was more important than them. Don't you? No. Yes. I don't know. Adriana sank onto Sophia's bed, her hands shaking. I left because I thought I was going to destroy them. I thought if I stayed, I'd hurt them worse. I thought they'd be better off without me. But you did choose work over family, didn't you? After you left, you threw yourself into your career. You built an empire instead of building a relationship with your children. Because it was easier, Adriana admitted, the words tearing from her throat. Because success was something I could control. Because every time I thought about coming back, I convinced myself that the longer I stayed away, the less they'd need me. And now I realize that the longer I stayed away, the more I needed them. They sat in comfortable silence. The photo albums spread between them like a bridge across 12 years of separation. The apartment was quiet, filled with the peaceful energy of a home where children were loved and safe, even if their family wasn't quite complete. I want to give them the letters, Daniel said suddenly. The ones you wrote. I want them to know that you never stopped thinking about them. Are you sure? They might be angry that you kept them. They might be, but they deserve to know the truth. They deserve to understand that leaving them was the hardest thing you ever did, not the easiest. It was, Adriana said quietly. It was the hardest thing I ever did, and staying away was the second hardest. Then why did you stay away for so long? Because I was afraid. Because I was ashamed. Because every year that passed made it harder to come back. Because I convinced myself that they were better off without me, that I'd just complicate their lives. And what changed? What made you decide to come back now? Adriana was quiet for a long moment, considering. I realized that I'd spent 12 years building something that meant nothing. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I don't have anyone to share it with. I have an empire that will outlast me, but I don't have a legacy that matters. The children are your legacy. The children are your legacy. You're the one who raised them, who was there for them, who loved them through everything. I'm just the woman who gave birth to them. You're their mother, Daniel said firmly. Biology doesn't make you a mother, but it doesn't unmake you one either. You're their mother, and they need to know their mother. What if they don't want to know me? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But Adriana, you can't make decisions for them. You can't protect them from disappointment by staying away. You can't save them from the possibility of pain by denying them the possibility of love. I don't know how to be a mother, Adriana admitted. I don't know how to talk to them, how to relate to them, how to be part of their lives without disrupting everything you've built. You don't have to know how. You just have to be willing to learn. You just have to be willing to show up and figure it out as you go. Like you did. Like I did. Like every parent does. Like we should have done together 12 years ago. The October morning was crisp and golden, with the kind of light that made even the most ordinary moments feel cinematic. Adriana stood at the entrance to the park, clutching a thermos of coffee and fighting the urge to run. Daniel had suggested they meet here, neutral ground where they could talk without the weight of his apartment's memories or her penthouse's intimidation. She spotted him on a bench overlooking the reservoir, his dark hair catching the sunlight, wearing a faded Columbia University sweatshirt that she remembered from their college days. The sight of him in that old sweatshirt, worn soft from years of washing, the logo barely visible, transported her back to Saturday mornings when they were young and broke and planning their future together. "You kept that sweatshirt," she said, settling beside him on the bench. "The kids gave it back to me for Father's Day 3 years ago. Said it was vintage now." Daniel's smile was warm but cautious. They found it in a box of old clothes and couldn't believe their dad had gone to Columbia. "Isabella said it made me look intellectual." "You are intellectual. You always were." Adriana pulled her wool coat tighter against the morning chill. "I used to love watching you study. You'd get this little crease between your eyebrows when you were concentrating. I still get that crease, usually when I'm trying to figure out Miguel's math homework." Daniel's laugh was genuine. Common Core math is harder than organic chemistry. They sat in comfortable silence, watching joggers circle the reservoir and dog walkers navigate the morning rush. The city was waking up around them, but the park felt like a refuge, a place where they could exist without the weight of their separate lives pressing down on them. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," Adriana said finally. "About the letters. And I want to give them to the children myself. Not all at once, but gradually. When the time feels right." She turned to face him, her brown eyes serious. "But I need to know what I'm walking into. I need to understand who they really are, not just who I hope they are." Daniel studied her face, searching for something. "You're sure you're ready for that? The real them, not the idealized version you've been carrying around." "I'm sure. Tell me about Sophia first. The real Sophia. Not the perfect student from the art show." Daniel leaned back against the bench, his expression thoughtful. "Sophia is brilliant, but she's also incredibly anxious. She's been having panic attacks since she was 8, usually before big tests or presentations. She puts enormous pressure on herself to be perfect, and when she falls short of perfection, she spirals." "That sounds familiar," Adriana said quietly. "It is familiar. She's got your intensity, your drive, your need to excel. But she's also got your tendency to catastrophize when things don't go according to plan." Daniel's voice was gentle but honest. "Last month, she had a panic attack because she got a B+ on a science test. She was convinced it meant she'd never get into medical school. She's 12 years old. She's 12 years old with a 40-year-old's anxiety about her future. She's been researching medical schools since she was 10, planning her course load for high school, calculating her GPA requirements." Daniel shook his head. "She's going to burn out before she hits puberty if she doesn't learn to ease up on herself." "How do you help her with that?" "Therapy. Dr. Patricia Henley at the Children's Mental Health Center in Forest Hills. Sophia sees her every other week, and we work on breathing techniques, mindfulness, realistic goal setting." Daniel's voice carried the weariness of a parent who had learned to navigate mental health challenges through trial and error. "Some days are better than others. Does she know about my struggles with anxiety? She knows you're in pharmaceuticals. She knows you're successful. She doesn't know about the postpartum depression or the anxiety that led to you leaving." Daniel paused. I thought that was something you should tell her yourself when you're ready. I might never be ready to tell her that her mother left because she couldn't handle being a mother. Then tell her that her mother left because she was sick and didn't know how to get better. Tell her that her mother made a mistake and spent 12 years trying to figure out how to fix it. Daniel's voice was firm but compassionate. Tell her the truth, Adriana. These kids are smart. They can handle the truth better than they can handle lies. They had moved to the cafe for breakfast, sitting at a small table overlooking the water. The morning crowd was thin, mostly tourists and early dog walkers, giving them privacy to continue their conversation. Tell me about Miguel, Adriana said, picking at her blueberry muffin. The artist. Miguel is... Daniel paused, searching for the right words. Miguel feels everything. He's empathetic to the point where it's sometimes overwhelming for him. He can't watch sad movies. He gets upset when his siblings fight. He cries during commercials about rescue animals. That sounds like it would be challenging. It is, but it's also beautiful. He's the one who remembers everyone's birthday, who makes cards for his teachers, who notices when someone is having a bad day. Daniel's smile was soft with parental pride. He's also incredibly talented. His art teacher says he has the best natural eye for composition she's seen in 20 years of teaching. What does he draw? Everything. But lately he's been drawing a lot of family scenes. Families at dinner, families at the park, families watching TV together. Daniel's voice grew quieter. Mrs. Rodriguez, not related to us, she's his art teacher. She thinks he's working through some feelings about family structure. About me not being there. About wondering what it would be like if you were there. He's never asked directly, but he'll say things like, I wonder if our family would be different if we had a mom? Or, do you think she would like my drawings? You told him I would love his drawings, didn't you? I told him that any mother would be proud to have an artist's son. I told him that creativity is a gift that should be celebrated. Daniel met her eyes. I never told him that you're creative too. I never told him that you used to sketch molecular structures for fun, that you designed the layout for our first apartment, that you painted a mural on the nursery wall before the babies were born. I'd forgotten about the mural, Adriana said softly. Rabbits and butterflies and little birds. It's still there. I couldn't bring myself to paint over it. The admission hung between them, heavy with 12 years of preservation and hope. Miguel would want to see it, Daniel continued. He's been asking about the nursery, about what it looked like when they were babies. He's fascinated by the idea of having shared a room with his sisters. Could I see it? The mural? Of course. But I should warn you, seeing it might be harder than you expect. It's faded, and there are some scuff marks from when they were toddlers, but it's still there. I'd like to see it anyway. I'd like to remember what it felt like to plan for their future instead of running from it. After breakfast, they had walked to the fountain, joining the Sunday morning crowd of street musicians, artists, and families enjoying the autumn weather. A group of children was feeding ducks at the water's edge, their laughter echoing across the plaza. And Isabella? Adriana asked, settling on the edge of the fountain. Tell me about Isabella. Isabella is sunshine, Daniel said immediately. She's the one who makes everyone laugh, who defuses tension with a joke, who remembers to ask about your day. She's social, outgoing, naturally charismatic. That sounds wonderful. It is wonderful, but it's also concerning sometimes. Isabella has learned to read emotions, to manage other people's feelings, to be the family entertainer. Daniel's voice carried a note of worry. She's 12 years old, but she acts like she's responsible for everyone else's happiness. That's a lot of pressure for a child. It is, and I'm not sure she knows how to just be a kid, how to have her own feelings without worrying about how they affect everyone else. Daniel watched the children feeding ducks, his expression thoughtful. She's never had a tantrum, never been difficult, never complained about anything. That sounds like a parent's dream, but it's actually kind of worrying. She's learned to be perfect to avoid conflict. She's learned to be perfect to avoid abandonment, Daniel corrected gently. She's learned that if she makes everyone happy, no one will leave. The implication hit Adriana like a physical blow. Because I left. Because you left. Because she was 2 years old when her mother disappeared. And on some level, she's been trying to be good enough to prevent it from happening again ever since. Oh God, I did that to her. I made her afraid to be herself. You made her afraid to be imperfect. But Adriana, she's also incredibly resilient. She's funny and kind and genuinely happy most of the time. The coping mechanism she developed isn't healthy, but it's also not destroying her. Yet, which is why therapy is important. Which is why honest conversations about feelings are important. Which is why having a mother who can model that it's okay to be imperfect is important. I don't know how to model that. I've spent my entire career being perfect. Then learn. Learn how to be imperfect with your children. Learn how to show them that you can make mistakes and still be loved. They had been walking for over an hour, moving through the park like two people trying to find their way back to each other. The conversation had been heavy, but the physical movement made it easier to process, as if the walking was helping them work through the emotional terrain. I brought something, Adriana said, stopping near a bench under the elm trees. She pulled a small photo album from her purse, its cover worn from handling. Pictures from the last 12 years. My life, my work, the places I've been. You want to share your life with them? I want them to understand that leaving them didn't mean I stopped existing. That I wasn't just gone. I was somewhere, doing things, thinking about them. She opened the album, showing Daniel the first page. This is my lab at Columbia where I did my postdoc research. This is the team I worked with on the diabetes medication that got approved last year. Daniel studied the photos, Adriana in a white lab coat, surrounded by colleagues, looking professional and confident but somehow alone even in group shots. You look successful, he said carefully. I look empty, Adriana corrected. I look like someone who's trying to fill a void with achievement. They flipped through the album together, photos of pharmaceutical conferences, research facilities, award ceremonies. Adriana providing narration for a life that had been full of accomplishment but devoid of connection. This is the FDA approval ceremony for the children's asthma medication we developed 3 years ago, she said, pointing to a photo of herself shaking hands with a government official. That medication helps thousands of kids breathe better. It was one of the biggest accomplishments of my career. You should be proud of that. I am proud of it. But I'm also aware that I was developing medication to help other people's children while I was ignoring my own. Adriana's voice was thick with regret. I was saving other kids while I was failing mine. You weren't failing them. You were just failing yourself. Is there a difference? Yes. Failing your children means not caring about their well-being. Failing yourself means caring so much that you're paralyzed by the fear of not being enough. The meadow was crowded with families enjoying the warm October afternoon. Children were playing frisbee, couples were picnicking on blankets, and the atmosphere was relaxed and joyful. Adriana and Daniel found a quiet spot on a small rise overlooking the activity. Can I ask you something? Adriana said, settling onto the grass beside him. Of course. How did you do it? How did you raise 3 children alone without losing your mind? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. I didn't do it alone. I had help. My mother came over 3 times a week for the first 2 years. Mrs. Patel from downstairs watched the kids when I had to work late. The teachers at school kept an eye on them, made sure they had what they needed. But the day-to-day stuff, the homework and the meals and the bedtime stories and the scraped knees and the nightmares, I figured it out as I went. I made a lot of mistakes. I burned dinner more nights than I care to admit. I showed up to parent-teacher conferences with baby food in my hair and mismatched socks. Daniel's laugh was rueful. But I was there. That was the important thing. I was there, and they knew I was there, and that was enough. I could never have done what you did. You could have. You just didn't believe you could. How can you be so sure? Because I've watched you build a pharmaceutical empire from nothing. I've seen you navigate FDA approvals and board meetings and international partnerships. I've seen you manage complexity that would overwhelm most people. Daniel's voice was firm with conviction. If you can do all that, you can figure out how to be a mother. Business is different. Business has rules and procedures and predictable outcomes. Children are chaos. Children are chaos, but they're also resilient. They're forgiving. They want to love their parents, even when their parents make mistakes. Daniel turned to face her. Sophia, Miguel, and Isabella want to love you, Adriana. They want to understand you. They want to forgive you. You just have to give them the chance. The apartment was still empty when they arrived, the triplets not due back from their sleepover until evening. Daniel had invited Adriana to see the nursery, to confront the physical reminder of the life she had left behind. The room was small, tucked at the end of the hallway, its door painted a cheerful yellow that had faded over the years. Daniel opened it slowly, as if he were opening a time capsule. "It's exactly the same," Adriana whispered, stepping into the room. 3 cribs had been replaced by a single twin bed, and toys had given way to storage boxes. But the mural she had painted was still there, covering the far wall in soft pastels. Rabbits hopped through a meadow of wildflowers, butterflies danced among the branches of an apple tree, and birds with outstretched wings soared across a sky dotted with puffy clouds. "It's faded," she said, touching the wall where she had painted a family of rabbits, 2 large ones and 3 small ones, all gathered around a picnic basket. "But it's still beautiful. Miguel comes in here sometimes, just to look at it. He says it makes him feel calm. I painted it the week before they were born. I was so excited, so hopeful. I thought I was going to be this amazing mother who would create a perfect world for them. You did create something perfect. You created them. I created them, but I didn't raise them. You raised them. You're the one who turned them into these incredible people. We both contributed to who they are. Your genetics, your intelligence, your creativity. It's all there in them. They're half you, Adriana. They carry your gifts, your potential, your capacity for love. They also carry my capacity for anxiety, for perfectionism, for running away when things get hard. Then teach them how to handle those things. Teach them how to stay when things get hard. Teach them how to ask for help when they need it. Teach them how to be human." They had spent the afternoon going through more photo albums, Daniel filling in the gaps in Adriana's understanding of her children's lives. The conversation had been painful but necessary, a kind of emotional archaeology that was helping Adriana piece together the people her children had become. "I have something for you," Daniel said, disappearing into his bedroom and returning with a small wrapped package. "I was going to give this to you yesterday, but the timing didn't feel right." Adriana unwrapped the package carefully, revealing a small wooden picture frame containing a photo she had never seen before. It showed all 5 of them in the hospital, just after the triplets were born. She was holding Sophia, Daniel was holding Miguel, and Isabella was sleeping in a bassinet beside the bed. They all looked exhausted but radiantly happy. "I had copies made," Daniel said quietly. One for each of the kids' rooms and one for you. I thought maybe you'd want to remember that we were a family once." "We were a family," Adriana said, her voice thick with emotion. "We were a family, and I destroyed it." "You didn't destroy it. You changed it. You made it incomplete. But families can be rebuilt, Adriana. They can be different from what they were, but they can still be real." "Do you really believe that?" "I believe that those 3 kids deserve to know their mother. I believe that you deserve to know your children. I believe that 12 years of separation doesn't have to mean a lifetime of loss." "And what about us? What about you and me?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. "I don't know. I don't know if we can be anything other than co-parents. I don't know if I can trust you with my heart again. But I know I can trust you with their hearts, if you're willing to be careful with them. I want to be careful with them. I want to be the mother they deserve. Then be patient. Be consistent. Be honest. Show up when you say you will. Keep your promises. Let them see who you really are, not who you think they want you to be." The front door opened with a burst of energy as the triplets returned from their sleepover, their voices echoing through the apartment as they shared stories of their weekend adventure. Adriana, who had been helping Daniel prepare dinner, froze at the sound. "Dad, we're home." Isabella's voice was bright with excitement. "Marcus's mom made the best pancakes ever, and we stayed up until midnight watching movies." "I'm in the kitchen," Daniel called back. "How was everyone's night?" "Epic." Miguel's voice joined the chorus. "We played video games and built a fort and—" The voices stopped abruptly as the 3 children appeared in the kitchen doorway, their eyes widening as they took in the scene of their father and Adriana cooking together. "Oh," Sophia said quietly. "Hello. Hello," Adriana managed, her heart racing. "How was your sleepover?" "It was fun," Isabella said, her natural social instincts kicking in even as her eyes remained curious and cautious. "Are you staying for dinner?" If that's okay with you." "It's okay with me," Isabella said immediately. "We're having spaghetti and meatballs. Dad makes the best meatballs." "I helped make them," Adriana said, surprising herself with the admission. "I remembered the recipe from before." "From before?" Miguel asked, his artistic sensitivity picking up on the emotional undercurrents in the room. "From when you were babies," Adriana said softly. "I used to cook for your father when we were in college." "You knew each other in college?" Sophia's analytical mind was already working through the implications. "We did. We were married when you were born." The 3 children exchanged glances, a silent communication that spoke to years of shared secrets and mutual protection. "Are you our mom?" Isabella asked, her voice small but direct. "Yes," Adriana said, her voice barely audible. "I'm your mother." The conversation that followed was awkward but necessary, a careful dance of questions and answers that slowly began to bridge 12 years of separation. The children were polite but guarded, their natural curiosity tempered by caution. "Why didn't you ever come see us?" Sophia asked, her direct nature cutting through the politeness. "Because I was sick," Adriana said, choosing honesty over comfort. "I was sick in my mind, and I thought you would be better off without me." "But we weren't better off without you," Miguel said quietly. "We always wondered about you. We always wanted to know you. I wanted to know you too. I wanted to come back, but I was scared. I was scared that you wouldn't want to know me." "We want to know you," Isabella said, her peacemaking instincts taking over. "We want to know what you're like, what you do, what you think about." "I think about you," Adriana said simply. "I think about you every day. I have for 12 years. "Then why didn't you come back?" Sophia pressed, her need for logical explanations evident. Because I thought 12 years was too long. Because I thought I had missed too much. Because I thought you had a perfect life without me, and I didn't want to mess it up. Our life isn't perfect, Miguel said softly. We love Dad, and we're happy, but we always felt like something was missing. What was missing? Adriana asked, though she dreaded the answer. You, Isabella said simply. You were missing. Sometimes the most important conversations happen around a dinner table, with simple food and complicated feelings. These three kids are about to decide whether to open their hearts to the mother who left them, and that takes incredible courage. What would you do if you were in their shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because this emotional reunion is just getting started. The words hung in the air, simple and profound, as Adriana realized that the family she had thought she destroyed was actually just waiting to be rebuilt. The children she had thought would hate her were actually ready to love her, if she was brave enough to let them. The morning after dinner had been cautiously hopeful. Adriana had stayed the night on the couch, and the triplets had been polite but distant over breakfast. Now, as she walked beside Daniel toward the school, she felt the weight of 12 years pressing down on her shoulders. You don't have to do this, Daniel said quietly, noticing her nervous energy. They're not expecting you to pick them up. I want to do this. I want to be part of their routine. Adriana adjusted her purse strap, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. I want them to see that I'm serious about staying. Just remember what we talked about. Small steps. Don't try to be everything all at once. The school was a modest brick building with colorful murals painted on the walls and a playground filled with children's laughter. Adriana had driven past it countless times during her rare visits to Queens, never knowing that her children spent their days behind these walls. At 3:15 p.m., the dismissal bell rang, and children began streaming out of the building. Adriana spotted them immediately. Sophia with her organized backpack and serious expression, Miguel with paint stains on his royal blue t-shirt, and Isabella practically bouncing with energy in her bright yellow dress. Mom! Isabella called out, the words still foreign on her tongue, but delivered with genuine excitement. You came. I told you I would, Adriana said, her heart swelling at being called Mom, even tentatively. How was school? She asked as they walked toward the car. Good, Sophia said simply. I got my history test back. I got an A. That's wonderful. I'm proud of you. It's just history, Sophia said, but Adriana could see the pleased flush on her daughter's cheeks. Miguel, what's that on your shirt? Adriana asked, pointing to the paint stains. Oh, that's from art class. We're working on self-portraits. Mine's kind of weird, but Mrs. Chun says all the best art is weird. I'd love to see it sometime. Really? You want to see my art? I want to see everything you create. Adriana had suggested taking them for an after-school snack, and the triplets had chosen their favorite dim sum restaurant in Flushing. The place was busy with the late afternoon crowd, families sharing steaming baskets of dumplings, and the comfortable chaos of a neighborhood institution. This is our favorite restaurant, Isabella explained, sliding into the booth. We come here for special occasions. What makes today special? Adriana asked, settling beside her. You're here, Isabella said simply, and Adriana felt her throat tighten with emotion. They ordered their favorites, hargao, siumai, and egg tarts, and Adriana watched her children navigate the familiar ritual of sharing food and stories. She was learning their rhythms, their preferences, their ways of communicating with each other. Mom, Sophia said suddenly, then stopped, looking uncomfortable with the word. It's okay, Adriana said gently. You can call me whatever feels right. What should we call you? Miguel asked. I mean, you're our mom, but it feels weird because we don't really know you yet. How about Adriana for now? Until calling me mom feels natural? That works, Sophia said, relief evident in her voice. Adriana, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you really rich? Like, really, really rich? Adriana paused, unsure how to answer. I have a successful company, yes. I'm financially comfortable. Dad said you're a billionaire, Isabella said, her eyes wide. Is that true? It's true. But that doesn't mean. Whoa! Miguel interrupted. That's like movie star rich. It's just numbers, Adriana said carefully. It doesn't change who I am as a person. But it changes everything else, Sophia said, her analytical mind already working through the implications. It means you could have helped us. It means you could have paid for Dad's back surgery, or gotten us a bigger apartment, or helped with college funds. The temperature at the table seemed to drop several degrees. Adriana felt the careful progress of the last day beginning to crumble. Sophia, Daniel warned gently. No, it's a fair question, Adriana said, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. You're right. I could have helped financially. I should have helped financially. Then why didn't you? Sophia pressed. Why did you let Dad struggle to pay for everything while you were getting rich? Because I thought you were better off without me. Because I thought sending money would make me feel better about leaving. And I knew that was selfish. So instead you sent nothing? Sophia's voice was getting sharper. You sent nothing and convinced yourself that was noble? Sophia, that's enough, Daniel said firmly. No, Dad. It's not enough. She's sitting here acting like she wants to be our mother. But she's been rich this whole time and never helped us. She never called, never sent birthday cards, never even let us know she was alive. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Sophia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You were protecting yourself from feeling guilty, and you let Dad work 2 jobs to pay for everything. You let him choose between paying for groceries and paying for my anxiety medication. Sophia, please. I have panic attacks, you know that? I have panic attacks because I'm terrified that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worth staying for. And now I find out that my own mother had billions of dollars and still thought I wasn't worth staying for. The restaurant around them had gone quiet, other diners pretending not to notice the family drama unfolding in the corner booth. That's not true, Adriana said, her voice breaking. You are worth everything. You're worth more than. Then why didn't you come back? Miguel asked, his voice small and hurt. Why didn't you ever try to see us? Because I was scared. Because I was a coward. Because I convinced myself that you were better off without me. We weren't better off without you, Isabella said, tears streaming down her face. We pretended we were okay, but we weren't. We used to make up stories about you, about where you were and why you couldn't come home. We thought maybe you were a spy, or a doctor saving people in Africa, or that you had amnesia and couldn't remember us. We thought anything was better than the truth, Sophia said, her voice cold. We thought anything was better than our mother just not wanting us. I wanted you. I've always wanted you. Then why didn't you fight for us? Sophia's voice cracked with years of suppressed pain. Why didn't you try to get better? Why didn't you get help? Why didn't you do anything except disappear? The meal had ended abruptly, with Sophia storming out of the restaurant and Miguel and Isabella following in tears. Daniel had paid the check while Adriana sat frozen in the booth, watching 12 years of hope crumble in the space of 15 minutes. Now they stood in the parking lot, the October evening growing cold around them, trying to figure out how to move forward from the wreckage of their first real conversation. I want to go home, Sophia said, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. I want to go home and pretend this never happened. Sophia, you're upset, and that's understandable, Adriana began. I'm not upset. I'm angry. I'm angry that you think you can just show up and be our mother like nothing happened. I'm angry that you think money can fix 12 years of abandonment. I'm angry that you made Dad struggle alone while you were living in some penthouse somewhere. I live in a penthouse, Adriana admitted quietly, on the Upper East Side. It has 5 bedrooms and a view of Central Park. 5 bedrooms, Sophia repeated, the words dripping with disgust. 5 bedrooms while we share 1 bathroom and Dad sleeps on the couch half the time because our apartment is too small. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. You never cared enough to find out. That's not true. Cared. I cared so much that it was killing me. Then why didn't you come back? Miguel asked again, his voice thick with tears. Why didn't you try to be our mom? Because I was sick, Miguel. I was sick in my mind, and I thought. You keep saying you were sick, Sophia interrupted. But you got better, didn't you? You got better enough to run a company and make billions of dollars. You got better enough to do everything except be our mother. The truth of Sophia's words hit Adriana like a physical blow. She had gotten better. She had found therapy, medication, success, fulfillment in her career. She had built a life that was rich and meaningful and accomplished. She had just built it without her children. You're right, she said quietly. I got better. I got help. I built a life. And I didn't include you in it. Why? Isabella asked through her tears. Why didn't you include us? Because I was ashamed. Because I was scared. Because I thought you would hate me for leaving. We do hate you, Sophia said, her voice flat and final. We hate you for leaving, and we hate you for staying away, and we hate you for coming back like this and expecting us to be grateful. Sophia, Daniel said sharply. That's enough. No, Dad. It's not enough. I'm 12 years old, and I've spent my whole life wondering why my mother didn't want me. Now I know. She didn't want me enough to try. She didn't want me enough to get help. She didn't want me enough to come back. That's not true. It is true. And the worst part is that you're rich enough to fix everything, but you're too selfish to actually do it. You're too selfish to admit that you chose your career over your children. The drive back to the apartment was silent except for the sound of quiet crying from the back seat. Adriana gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white, trying to process the complete destruction of the fragile connection she had been building with her children. I'll drop you off and go, she said quietly as they pulled up to the apartment building. You don't have to go, Isabella said through her tears. You could stay. You could try to fix this. I don't think your sister wants me to try to fix this. I don't want you to try to fix this, Sophia said from the back seat. I want you to admit that you can't fix this. I want you to admit that some things are broken forever. Sophia, please. No. You had 12 years to fix this. You had 12 years to come back, to apologize, to try to be our mother. You chose not to. You chose your career and your money and your perfect life over us. And now you think you can just show up and we'll forgive you because you're sad. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just want a chance to. To what? To make yourself feel better? To convince yourself that you're not a terrible person. Sophia's voice was getting louder, more desperate. You are a terrible person. You're a terrible mother. You left us and you stayed away, and you don't get to come back now and pretend it was all some big misunderstanding. Sophia, stop it, Daniel said firmly. You're hurting her. Good. She hurt us first. She hurt us for 12 years. She's still your mother. No, she's not. She's the woman who gave birth to us. You're our parent. You're the one who raised us and loved us and stayed with us. She's nothing to us." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Adriana felt something inside her chest crack and crumble, the last of her hope dissolving in the face of her daughter's righteous anger. "You're right," she said quietly. "I am nothing to you. I gave up the right to be your mother when I walked away." "Adriana, don't," Daniel started. "No, she's right. I was a coward. I was selfish. I chose my career over my children, and I don't get to come back now and pretend it was all about protecting them. I was protecting myself." They sat in the living room, the triplets on the couch and Adriana in the chair across from them, the physical distance reflecting the emotional chasm that had opened between them. "I have something to tell you," Adriana said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Something I should have told you yesterday." "What?" Sophia asked, her voice still cold but curious. "I set up trust funds for each of you when you were born. They've been growing for 12 years. Each trust is worth about $50 million. The room went completely silent. $50 million? Miguel whispered. "Each. It's your money. It's been your money all along. I never knew how to tell you about it without making it seem like I was trying to buy your love. You gave us $50 million each, but you never gave us a mother," Sophia said, her voice breaking. "You gave us money we didn't know about, but you never gave us yourself." I know how that sounds. I know how awful that is." "Do you?" Sophia stood up, pacing to the window. "Do you really know how awful it is? Because I don't think you do. I think you think money fixes everything. I think you can just throw money at us and we'll forget that you abandoned us. That's not. Yes, it is. You set up trust funds so you could feel better about leaving. You made sure we'd be taken care of financially so you didn't have to take care of us emotionally. You bought yourself permission to stay away." "Maybe that's true," Adriana said quietly. "Maybe I did convince myself that providing for you financially was enough. Maybe I did use money as an excuse to avoid being a real mother." "At least you're finally being honest," Sophia said. "I'm trying to be honest. I'm trying to tell you the truth about who I am and what I've done. I'm trying to." "You're trying to make yourself feel better," Sophia interrupted. "You're trying to find a way to live with yourself. You're trying to turn this into some kind of redemption story where you're the misunderstood hero who made hard choices. I'm not a hero. I'm not misunderstood. I'm a mother who abandoned her children, and I'm trying to figure out how to live with that." "You live with it by staying away," Sophia said, her voice final. "You live with it by admitting that you can't fix what you broke. You live with it by leaving us alone." Sophia had locked herself in her bedroom, refusing to come out for dinner or conversation. Miguel and Isabella had tried to eat, but the tension in the apartment was suffocating, making normal activities feel impossible. Adriana stood outside Sophia's door, listening to the sound of quiet crying from inside. "Sophia?" she called softly. "Can I talk to you? Go away. Please. Just for a minute." "I said go away. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. I want you to leave. I'll leave if that's what you really want. But first, I want to tell you something. Something about the anxiety attacks." There was silence from inside the room. "I have them too," Adriana continued. "I've had them since I was your age. Panic attacks, perfectionism, the feeling that I have to be perfect or everyone will leave me. I know what it feels like to feel like you're not good enough, like you're not worth staying for." "You don't know anything about me," Sophia said through the door. "I know that you're brilliant and driven and terrified of making mistakes. I know that you put enormous pressure on yourself to be perfect. I know that you have panic attacks before tests because you're scared of failing. Dad told you that. Dad told me that because he's worried about you. Because he loves you. Because he wants you to be happy, not just successful. I don't need you to worry about me. I have Dad. I don't need you. You're right. You don't need me. You've made that very clear. But I need you to know that the anxiety you feel, the fear of not being good enough, that's not your fault. That's something you inherited from me. That's my burden that you're carrying. I don't want to carry your burden. Then don't. Get help. See a therapist. Take medication if you need it. Don't let my mistakes become your limitations. Why do you care? Because you're my daughter. Because I love you. Because I want you to be happy. You don't get to love me, Sophia said, her voice cracking. You don't get to care about me. You gave up that right when you left. I know, but I love you anyway. I love you and Miguel and Isabella, and I'm going to love you whether you want me to or not. That's not fair. No, it's not fair. It's not fair that I left you. It's not fair that I stayed away. It's not fair that I love you now when I couldn't figure out how to love you then. None of this is fair. Daniel was washing dishes when Adriana found him, her decision made. She had spent the last hour sitting in the living room, watching Miguel draw pictures at the kitchen table, while Isabella tried to lighten the mood with jokes that fell flat. I'm going to go, she said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Sophia's right. I can't fix this. I can't undo 12 years of damage with a few conversations and some home-cooked meals. You're giving up? I'm accepting reality. They don't want me here. They don't trust me. They think I'm trying to buy their love, and maybe they're right. They're hurt. They're angry. That doesn't mean they don't want to know you. Sophia made it very clear that they don't want to know me. She made it very clear that I'm nothing to them. She's 12 years old and she's processing 12 years of abandonment. She's not thinking clearly. She's thinking more clearly than I am. She's right about everything. I did choose my career over my children. I did use money as an excuse to avoid being a real mother. I did convince myself that I was protecting them when I was really protecting myself. Adriana, don't do this. Don't let one hard conversation destroy everything you've built. I haven't built anything. I've just stirred up pain and anger and hurt. I've made everything worse. You've made everything real. For the first time in 12 years, they're dealing with the reality of having a mother instead of just the fantasy of one. That's going to be messy and painful and hard. I can't watch them hate me. I can't watch Sophia look at me like I'm the enemy. Then fight for them. Show them that you're not going anywhere this time. Show them that you're willing to stick around even when it's hard. I don't know how to do that. You try. You learn. You make mistakes and you try again. You be patient and consistent and present. What if it's not enough? What if I can't be the mother they need? Then you keep trying anyway. That's what parents do. They keep trying even when they're failing. The triplets were all in the living room now, curled up on the couch together watching a movie. Sophia was still red-eyed from crying, but she had emerged from her bedroom to join her siblings. The sight of them together, supporting each other through the emotional chaos of the day, made Adriana's heart ache with love and regret. I'm going to go now, she said quietly, not wanting to interrupt the movie but needing to say goodbye. You're leaving? Isabella asked, pausing the movie. I think it's best. You're all upset, and I don't want to make things worse. You're not making things worse, Miguel said softly. You're just making things different. Different isn't always bad, Isabella added. Sometimes different is just confusing. I'm very confused, Adriana admitted. I'm confused about how to be your mother. I'm confused about how to fix what I broke. I'm confused about whether I even have the right to try. You have the right to try, Isabella said firmly. You're our mom. That doesn't just go away because you were gone. Sophia doesn't think so. Sophia thinks a lot of things when she's upset, Miguel said diplomatically. She doesn't always mean them. I meant them, Sophia said quietly, not looking at Adriana. I meant every word. I know you did, and you have every right to feel that way. You have every right to be angry with me. I don't want to be angry, Sophia said, her voice small. I want to understand. I want to understand why you left us. I want to understand why you stayed away. I want to understand why you think you can come back now. I left because I was scared. I stayed away because I was ashamed. I came back because I finally realized that being scared and ashamed was a terrible reason to miss out on knowing you. Are you still scared? Terrified. I'm terrified that you'll never forgive me. I'm terrified that I'll disappoint you again. I'm terrified that I don't know how to be the mother you deserve. At least you're honest about it, Sophia said. I'm trying to be honest about everything, even the parts that make me look terrible. You do look terrible, Sophia said, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to see that you're not perfect. Maybe we needed to see that you're just as scared and confused as we are. Sometimes the truth hits harder than we expect it to. These kids just learned that their mother could have helped them financially for years but chose not to, and now they're questioning everything they thought they knew about love, family, and forgiveness. If you were Sophia, Miguel, or Isabella, could you forgive someone who had the power to make your life easier but chose not to? Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure to subscribe because this story is far from over. Adriana stood beside her Mercedes, keys in hand, looking up at the warm light spilling from the apartment windows. She could see the silhouettes of her children moving around inside, could imagine them getting ready for bed, helping each other through the emotional aftermath of the day. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Don't give up. They need time to process. So do you. Another text followed. Sophia asked me to give you this. It was a photo of a drawing Miguel had made earlier in the evening. A family portrait showing 5 figures holding hands under a rainbow. The figures were labeled in his careful handwriting. Dad, Sophia, Miguel, Isabella, and Mom. Adriana stared at the drawing, at the word Mom written in her son's hopeful handwriting, and felt something inside her shift. Not hope exactly, but determination. A quiet resolve that maybe, just maybe, she could learn to be the mother her children needed, even if it meant starting from the very beginning. She looked up at the apartment one more time, then got in her car and drove away, knowing that tomorrow would bring another chance to try, another opportunity to choose her children over her fear. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in 12 years, Adriana Rodriguez was ready to take it one day at a time. Adriana stood at the windows of her penthouse, watching the sunrise paint Central Park in shades of amber and gold. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Sophia's words echoing in her mind. You're nothing to us. The penthouse felt different this morning. Not like the sanctuary of success she'd built, but like a monument to everything she'd sacrificed to get here. The marble countertops, the designer furniture, the view that had once made her feel like she'd conquered the world. It all felt hollow now, like props in a play she no longer wanted to perform. Her phone had been buzzing since 5 a.m. with messages from her assistant, board members, and investors. The pharmaceutical world didn't pause for personal crises. She had a board meeting at 9 a.m., a conference call with European partners at 2 p.m., and a charity gala to attend that evening, the kind of high-stakes social event that had once energized her, but now felt like just another performance. She picked up her phone and scrolled through the messages, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. For 12 years, work had been her refuge, her identity, her excuse for not dealing with the hole she'd torn in her own heart. Today, for the first time, she wasn't sure it was enough. Her reflection in the window showed a woman who looked successful and polished, but her eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone who had just realized that all the money in the world couldn't buy back lost time. Daniel was making breakfast when his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and saw Adriana's name, then looked toward the bedrooms where the triplets were getting ready for school. "Hello," he answered quietly. "I need to ask you something." Adriana's voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. Yesterday, when Sophia was so angry, was she right? About everything. Daniel stirred the scrambled eggs thoughtfully. She was right about some things. She was hurting about others. Was she right that I used money as an excuse to avoid being a real mother? I think you convinced yourself that providing for them financially was enough. I think you told yourself that story so you could live with the choice you made. I did, didn't I? I set up those trust funds so I could feel like I was still taking care of them, even though I wasn't actually taking care of them. Adriana, you were sick. You were dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety, and I got better, Daniel. I got therapy, I got medication, I built a life. I got better enough to run a billion-dollar company, but I didn't get better enough to call my children. What are you saying? I'm saying Sophia was right. I'm saying I chose my career over my kids. I'm saying I was a coward who used mental illness as an excuse long after I dealt with the mental illness. Daniel lowered his voice as he heard footsteps in the hallway. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I can do about it. There's always something you can do about it. The question is whether you're brave enough to do it. The triplets were unusually quiet as they walked to school. Sophia had her arms wrapped around herself, her face set in the determined expression she wore when she was trying not to cry. Miguel kept glancing at his siblings, clearly wanting to say something but not knowing what. Isabella was humming quietly, a nervous habit she'd developed when she was anxious. Are you okay? Daniel asked Sophia as they reached the school entrance. I'm fine, she said, but her voice was tight. You don't sound fine. I said things last night, mean things. Maybe I shouldn't have said them. You were hurt. You were angry. That's understandable. But what if I made her leave forever? What if she never comes back because I was so awful to her? Daniel knelt down to Sophia's level, studying her face. Do you want her to come back? I don't know. Maybe. I'm so confused, Dad. I'm angry at her, but I'm also scared that she'll disappear again. She won't disappear again. How do you know? Because I know her. I know that beneath all the success and the walls she's built, she's still the woman who used to sing to you when you had nightmares. She's still the woman who cried when you took your first steps. She's still your mother. But what if being my mother isn't enough for her? What if she chooses her career again? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But right now, she's trying to choose you. She's trying to figure out how to be the mother you deserve. The boardroom was filled with 12 of the most powerful people in the pharmaceutical industry, but Adriana felt like she was watching them from behind glass. They were discussing quarterly projections, FDA approvals, and market expansion strategies, all things that had once consumed her thoughts completely. Adriana! The voice of her board chairman, Robert Chun, cut through her distraction. The European acquisition? She realized she'd been staring out the window, thinking about Miguel's drawing of the family holding hands under a rainbow. I'm sorry, what was the question? The European acquisition. Are we moving forward with the timeline we discussed? The timeline? She repeated, her mind still elsewhere. Yes, the timeline. Which timeline? Robert's voice carried a note of concern. We discussed 3 different options. Adriana looked around the table at the faces of her colleagues, people who had helped her build this empire, people who depended on her for leadership and direction. For 12 years, this room had been her sanctuary, her place of power and control. Today it felt like a cage. I need to take a break, she said abruptly, standing up. Can we reschedule this meeting? Reschedule? Robert looked confused. Adriana, the European partners are expecting our decision by end of day. Then tell them they'll have to wait. Some things are more important than business deals. What's more important than a $2 billion acquisition? Adriana paused at the door, thinking about Sophia's anger, Miguel's hope, Isabella's confusion, and Daniel's quiet faith in her ability to change. Family, she said simply. Family is more important. Adriana found herself walking through Central Park, her expensive heels clicking on the path as she tried to process the chaos in her head. She'd left her board meeting without explanation, turned off her phone, and walked out of the building that had been her second home for over a decade. The park was busy with morning joggers, dog walkers, and tourists taking photos of the autumn leaves. She watched a family with young children feeding ducks by the pond, the parents laughing as their toddler threw bread enthusiastically into the water. She thought about her own children at that age, how Sophia had been methodical about feeding ducks, making sure each duck got an equal share, how Miguel had been fascinated by the ripples on the water, how Isabella had wanted to take every duck home as a pet. She had memories of them, fragments of the 2 years she'd spent as their mother before her world had collapsed. But she'd buried those memories so deep that they felt like scenes from someone else's life. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She turned it back on instinctively, years of corporate conditioning making it impossible to stay disconnected for long. The screen showed 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 6 voicemails. She scrolled through them. Board members, investors, assistants, colleagues, all wondering where she was, what was happening, why she'd disappeared from the most important meeting of the quarter. One message stood out among the corporate chaos. It was from Daniel, sent 20 minutes ago. Sophia asked me to tell you that she's sorry for what she said last night. She's scared and confused, but she doesn't want you to give up on them. Adriana stared at the message, reading it 3 times before it fully sank in. Sophia was sorry. Sophia didn't want her to give up. Dr. Hawthorne had been Adriana's therapist for 8 years, the woman who had helped her navigate the success and isolation of her corporate rise. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes, and she had a way of cutting through Adriana's defenses with gentle precision. You look like you haven't slept, Dr. Hawthorne observed as Adriana settled into the familiar chair across from her desk. I haven't. I've been thinking about everything that's happened in the last few days. Tell me about the children. Adriana had called Dr. Hawthorne from the park, requesting an emergency session. She'd never talked about her children in therapy before. They'd always been the subject she couldn't bear to approach. They're beautiful, Adriana said, her voice soft. They're intelligent and funny and creative. Sophia is brilliant but anxious. Miguel is artistic and sensitive. Isabella is optimistic and caring. They're everything I hoped they would be. But they hate me, and they have every right to hate me. Do they hate you, or are they protecting themselves from being hurt again? Sophia said I was nothing to them. She said I gave up the right to be their mother when I left. How did that make you feel? Like I was dying. Like everything I'd built, everything I'd achieved, was meaningless if I couldn't be their mother. And what did you do with that feeling? I ran. I left. I went back to my penthouse and my corporate life and tried to pretend it didn't matter. But it does matter. It matters more than anything. It matters more than my company, more than my money, more than my reputation. It matters more than everything I thought was important. Dr. Hawthorne leaned forward slightly. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I don't know how to be their mother. I don't know how to earn their trust. I don't know how to prove that I've changed. How do you prove anything? Through actions. Through consistency. Through showing up. And are you willing to show up? Adriana was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the choice that lay before her. She could go back to her corporate life, lose herself in work and money and success. She could convince herself that her children were better off without her, that she was protecting them by staying away. Or she could fight. She could risk everything, her pride, her carefully constructed life, her fear of rejection, for the chance to be their mother. "I'm willing to try," she said finally. "I'm willing to risk everything to try." Adriana walked back into her building with purpose, her decision made. She took the elevator to the 34th floor, where her assistant, Patricia, was fielding calls and looking increasingly frazzled. "Adriana, thank God you're back. The board is having an emergency meeting about the European deal, and the press is starting to ask questions about." "Cancel my afternoon meetings," Adriana said calmly. "Cancel everything for the rest of the week." "Cancel everything? But the European partners will have to wait. I have more important things to do." "More important than a $2 billion acquisition?" Adriana smiled, thinking about Miguel's drawing and Sophia's apology and Isabella's forgiveness. "Much more important." Adriana's Mercedes looked out of place in the school parking lot, surrounded by minivans and older sedans. She'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, watching parents arrive for pickup, working up the courage to go inside. She'd never been to her children's school before. She'd never met their teachers, never seen their classrooms, never attended a parent-teacher conference or school play. She was a stranger in their world, and she was terrified that she was too late to become part of it. The dismissal bell rang, and children began streaming out of the building. She spotted the triplets immediately, Sophia walking with her head down, Miguel bouncing slightly as he talked to a friend, Isabella practically skipping toward the parking lot. They saw her car and stopped, exchanging glances. Sophia's expression was unreadable, but she didn't turn away. Miguel waved tentatively. Isabella broke into a run. "You came back," Isabella said breathlessly as she reached the car. "I came back," Adriana confirmed. "I'll always come back. Promise." "I promise." Sophia and Miguel approached more cautiously. Sophia's eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. "I'm sorry," Sophia said quietly. "I'm sorry for the things I said last night. I was angry and hurt, and I said things I didn't mean." "You don't have to apologize for being hurt," Adriana said gently. "You have every right to be angry with me. But I don't want to be angry anymore. I'm tired of being angry. Then let's try something different. Let's try figuring out how to be a family." They walked through the park together, the October afternoon crisp and bright around them. The trees were at their peak autumn color, and the playground was full of children enjoying the warm weather. "I used to bring you here when you were little," Adriana said as they passed the playground. Miguel loved the swings. Sophia liked the monkey bars, and Isabella would spend hours in the sandbox. "I remember the sandbox," Isabella said. "I remember building castles and pretending I was a princess." "You are a princess," Adriana said. "You're all royalty to me." "Even when we're angry at you?" Sophia asked. "Especially when you're angry at me. It means you care enough to feel something." They found a bench overlooking the pond, where families were feeding ducks and children were running around with kites. It was the kind of scene that used to make Adriana feel like an outsider, but today it felt like something she could be part of. "I made a decision today," Adriana said, settling on the bench between Sophia and Miguel while Isabella sat on the grass at their feet. "I'm taking a leave of absence from my company." "What does that mean?" Miguel asked. "It means I'm stepping away from work for a while. It means I'm choosing to spend time with you instead of spending time in boardrooms and conference calls." "For how long?" Sophia asked. "For as long as it takes. For as long as you'll let me." "What about your company? What about all your important business deals?" They'll have to wait. You're more important than any business deal. Sophia studied her face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. You're really going to give up work to spend time with us? I'm not giving up work. I'm choosing priorities. I'm choosing you. The apartment felt different when they walked in together, warmer, more complete. Daniel was in the kitchen starting dinner, and the smell of garlic and onions filled the air. You're back, he said, looking up from the stove with a smile. I'm back, Adriana confirmed. And I'm staying. What does that mean? It means I'm taking time off work. It means I want to be part of their daily lives. It means I want to learn how to be their mother. Are you sure? Yesterday you were ready to give up. Yesterday I was scared. Today I'm still scared. But I'm more scared of missing out on their lives than I am of failing at being their mother. The triplets had scattered to their rooms to change clothes and start homework. But the apartment felt full of possibility in a way it hadn't the day before. What changed? Daniel asked quietly. I realized that Sophia was right about everything. I did choose my career over my children. I did use money as an excuse to avoid being a real mother. I did convince myself that I was protecting them when I was really protecting myself. And now I want to choose them. I want to learn how to be the mother they deserve. I want to be present and consistent and real. It's not going to be easy. They're going to test you. They're going to push you away sometimes to see if you'll leave again. I know, but I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. They sat around the small dining table, sharing a simple meal of rice, beans, and chicken. It was nothing like the expensive restaurants Adriana was used to, but it felt more nourishing than any meal she'd had in years. Tell me about school, she said, looking at each of her children in turn. Tell me about your friends, your teachers, your favorite subjects. I like math, Sophia said, and science. I want to be a doctor someday. A doctor? What kind of doctor? A pediatrician. I want to help kids who are sick. That's wonderful. You'd be an excellent doctor. Miguel likes art, Isabella chimed in. He's really good at drawing and painting. I want to be an artist, Miguel said shyly. I want to make things that make people happy. What about you, Isabella? What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. I want to help kids learn things. Or maybe a singer. Or maybe both. You can be both if you want to. You can be anything you want to be. What did you want to be when you were little? Sophia asked. Adriana thought about it, remembering the girl she'd been before ambition and success had consumed her. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to have children and take care of them and watch them grow up. But you also wanted to be a businesswoman, right? Miguel asked. I thought I wanted to be a businesswoman. I thought success and money would make me happy. But I was wrong. Being your mother was the thing that made me happiest. And I was too scared and confused to realize it. Are you happy now? Isabella asked. I'm happier than I've been in 12 years. I'm happier sitting at this table with you than I ever was in all my fancy offices and boardrooms. After dinner, they settled in the living room to watch a movie. The triplets had chosen an animated film about a family of superheroes, and they were all curled up on the couch together. Adriana sat in the chair nearby, watching them more than she watched the movie. She was memorizing everything, the way Sophia absently played with her hair when she was concentrating, the way Miguel quietly sang along with the movie's songs, the way Isabella made commentary throughout the film. You can sit with us, Isabella said during a quiet moment. There's room on the couch. Are you sure? We're sure, Miguel said, scooting over to make space. Sophia nodded, not looking away from the screen but making room for her mother. Adriana settled onto the couch between Isabella and Sophia, and for a moment, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Isabella leaned against her shoulder, and Sophia didn't pull away when their arms touched. "This is nice," Isabella said softly. "This feels like a real family." "It is a real family," Adriana said. "We're a real family." The triplets were getting ready for bed, and Adriana was helping with the bedtime routine for the first time in 12 years. She helped Isabella brush her teeth, listened to Miguel read a chapter from his book, and sat on the edge of Sophia's bed while Sophia organized her backpack for the next day. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" Sophia asked, not looking up from her homework planner. "I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here every day. What if you change your mind? What if you decide that being our mother is too hard? Then I'll figure out how to do it better. I'll get help. I'll learn. I'll try harder. But I won't leave." "How do I know you mean it?" "Because I'm not the same person who left 12 years ago. Because I've learned what's important and what isn't. Because I love you more than I love my career, more than I love my money, more than I love my pride." Sophia finally looked up, her eyes serious and searching. "Do you really love us?" "I love you so much it scares me. I love you so much that I'm willing to give up everything else to be your mother. Even your company? Even my company. Even my reputation. Even my perfect life. None of it matters if I can't be your mother." Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing this. "I love you too," she said finally. "I've always loved you, even when I was angry, even when I hated you, I still loved you." "I know. That's what made it so hard. You loved me even when I didn't deserve it. You deserve it now. I'm going to try to deserve it. I'm going to try to be the mother you need me to be." Daniel was reading in bed when Adriana knocked on his door. He looked up as she entered, noting the peace in her expression that hadn't been there the night before. "They're asleep," she said softly. "All three of them. How was bedtime?" "Perfect. Scary and wonderful and perfect. Are you ready for this? Are you ready to be their mother every day? Not just when it's convenient." "I'm terrified, but I'm also more sure of this than I've been of anything in my life." "What about your company? Your board is probably having a collective heart attack. They'll survive. They'll figure out how to run the company without me for a while. And if they don't? If taking time off costs you everything you've built?" Adriana thought about her penthouse, her wealth, her reputation in the pharmaceutical industry. Then she thought about Sophia's apology, Miguel's drawing, Isabella's forgiveness, and the feeling of belonging she'd experienced on the couch with her children. "Then it costs me everything I've built," she said simply. "And I'll build something better." These moments of choice define us more than any success ever could. Here's a woman who built an empire but lost her family, and now she's risking everything she's achieved for a chance to be the mother she should have been all along. Do you think she's making the right choice? Could you give up everything you've worked for to repair the relationships that matter most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe, because the hardest part of redemption is still ahead. Adriana sat on the couch where she'd spent the evening with her children, looking around the small apartment that felt more like home than her penthouse ever had. Her phone was buzzing constantly with messages from her corporate world, but she ignored them all. Instead, she took out a notebook and began writing. She wrote about Sophia's intelligence and anxiety, about Miguel's artistic sensitivity, about Isabella's optimism and warmth. She wrote about Daniel's strength and patience, about the home he'd built for their children while she'd been building her career. She wrote about the 12 years she'd lost, about the choices she'd made and the prices she'd paid. She wrote about the woman she'd been and the mother she wanted to become. But mostly she wrote about tomorrow, about the morning routine she wanted to learn, the school pickup she wanted to do, the bedtime stories she wanted to read. She wrote about the ordinary moments that would build into an extraordinary life, not because of money or success, but because of love and presence and the daily choice to stay. Outside, Queens was settling into the quiet of night, and inside the apartment, her children were sleeping peacefully. For the first time in 12 years, Adriana fell asleep not in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, but on a couch in a small apartment in Queens, surrounded by the family she'd chosen over everything else. The choice had been made. The real work was just beginning. 3 months later, Adriana stood among the other parents in the school auditorium, her heart racing as she watched Sophia step up to the microphone for the 5th grade science fair presentation. 3 months ago, she wouldn't have even known about this event. Today, she was the parent who had helped Sophia practice her speech about renewable energy sources every night for 2 weeks. My project explores solar panel efficiency in different weather conditions. Sophia began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. I chose this topic because I want to help create a cleaner world for future generations. In the audience, Adriana felt tears prick her eyes. She glanced at Daniel, who was recording everything on his phone, and at Miguel and Isabella, who were cheering quietly for their sister. This was what she'd been missing. Not just the big moments, but the pride of watching your child find their voice. Sophia finished her presentation to enthusiastic applause, and when she found Adriana's face in the crowd, she smiled. Not the cautious, testing smile she'd worn for the first month, but a real smile that reached her eyes. They celebrated Sophia's successful presentation with hot chocolate and pastries at their new family tradition. Tuesday afternoon treats after school events. Adriana had traded her usual green tea for Miguel's recommendation of chai latte, and she was learning to enjoy the sweetness. I was so nervous, Sophia admitted, finally allowing herself to relax. But when I saw you all watching, I felt braver. You were incredible, Adriana said, squeezing her daughter's hand. You explained those concepts better than most of my pharmaceutical engineers. Really, you have a gift for making complex ideas simple. That's going to serve you well as a doctor. Isabella was coloring in an activity book, her tongue poking out in concentration. Mom, will you help me with my math homework tonight? The word, Mom, still made Adriana's chest tighten with gratitude. It had taken Isabella 2 weeks to start using it naturally, Sophia 6 weeks, and Miguel still alternated between Mom and Adriana depending on his mood. But each time she heard it, she felt like she was earning back a piece of herself she'd lost. Of course I'll help you, Adriana said. What kind of math are you working on? Fractions. They're really hard. I used to think fractions were impossible too. But once you understand them, they're actually pretty fun. Miguel looked up from his sketchbook, where he was drawing the scene around them. Can you help me with my art project this weekend? What's the project? We have to create a family portrait using mixed media. I want to make something that shows how our family has changed. I'd love to help. What materials do you need? Paint, fabric, maybe some of those fancy papers you have at your office. Adriana smiled. Her corporate supplies had found new purpose in Miguel's art projects, and she discovered that pharmaceutical flowcharts made excellent collage material. The evening routine had become second nature. Adriana helped with homework while Daniel cooked dinner. They took turns reading bedtime stories. They shared the daily challenges of parenting, Miguel's reluctance to clean his room, Sophia's perfectionist anxiety about grades, Isabella's tendency to dawdle when getting ready for school. The Washington Post wants to do a feature story, Daniel mentioned as he stirred the pasta sauce. About your leave of absence from the company. I'm not ready for that kind of attention, Adriana said, helping Isabella with her fraction worksheets. This isn't about public relations or corporate image. This is about us. What are you going to tell them? That I'm not available for interviews. That I'm focusing on my family. Are you sure? It could be good for your reputation. Show that you're human. Adriana looked around the kitchen, at Isabella's math homework spread across the counter, at Miguel's art supplies organized in a corner, at Sophia's science fair ribbon proudly displayed on the refrigerator. I don't need to rehabilitate my reputation. I need to be present for my children. Movie night had become their Wednesday tradition. This week, Miguel had chosen a documentary about famous artists, and they were all curled up on the couch together. Adriana had her arm around Isabella, who was already getting sleepy, while Sophia leaned against her other side. Van Gogh painted over 900 paintings but only sold one while he was alive, Miguel said, fascinated by the documentary. He never knew he was going to be famous. That's sad, Isabella murmured. He should have known he was amazing. Sometimes people don't recognize amazing when they see it, Sophia said thoughtfully. Sometimes they only realize it later. Adriana caught Daniel's eye across the room, understanding the subtext in Sophia's words. Recognition, forgiveness, and second chances. These were the themes that had woven through their last 3 months together. The important thing is that Van Gogh kept painting, Adriana said. Even when people didn't understand his art, even when he was struggling, he kept creating beautiful things. Like how you kept loving us even when we were angry at you? Isabella asked. Exactly like that. The bedtime routine had evolved into something sacred. Adriana tucked Isabella into bed first, listening to her recap her day and her plans for tomorrow. Then she helped Miguel organize his art supplies and listened to him read from his favorite book about Renaissance painters. Sophia's room was last, and their bedtime conversations had become the deepest part of Adriana's day. Tonight, Sophia was organizing her school supplies for the next day, a habit that helped calm her anxiety. I've been thinking about something, Sophia said, arranging her pencils by color. About forgiveness. What about it? I think forgiveness isn't something you do once. I think it's something you do every day, a little bit at a time. That's very wise. What made you think about that? Because I realized I'm not angry at you anymore. Not really. But I'm still learning how to trust you completely. And that's okay. It's more than okay. It's honest. Trust is something you earn over time, not something you demand. I think I'm getting there, though. I think we're all getting there. I think so too. Sophia finished organizing her supplies and climbed into bed. Will you be here in the morning? It was a question she'd asked every night for the first month, and occasionally still asked when she was feeling uncertain. I'll be here in the morning. I'll be here every morning. Good, because I need help with my history project, and you're really good at explaining things. Daniel was reading when Adriana knocked on his door, their nightly check-in that had become as natural as breathing. They'd been navigating the complexity of co-parenting and their own relationship with patience and honesty. How was your day? He asked, setting down his book. Good, really good. Sophia's presentation was amazing, and Isabella finally understood fractions, and Miguel finished his sketch of the family. And how are you? Really? I'm tired, she admitted. Parenting is exhausting in ways I never imagined, but I'm also happier than I've been in years. Any regrets about the company? None. The board is handling things fine without me. Robert calls with updates, but honestly, I don't miss the stress and the politics and the endless meetings. What about the money? Your salary, your bonuses? I have enough money to last several lifetimes. What I didn't have was a relationship with my children. I couldn't buy that back, but I could earn it back. And us? Where do we stand? It was the question they'd been dancing around for months. They'd been focused on the children, on rebuilding family relationships, on creating stability. But underneath it all was the question of whether they could be partners again, not just co-parents. I think we're figuring it out, Adriana said carefully. I think we're both different people than we were 12 years ago. I think we're learning who we are now. I think I'm falling in love with who you are now. I know I'm falling in love with who you've become. You're an incredible father, Daniel. You gave our children everything they needed when I couldn't. And now I want to give them everything they need going forward. I want to be the mother they deserve, and I want to be the partner you deserve. Adriana sat on the couch with her laptop, but instead of corporate reports, she was researching local volunteer opportunities. She'd been thinking about what Miguel had said about Van Gogh, about creating beautiful things even when people don't recognize them. Her phone rang, and she saw her assistant's name on the screen. She almost didn't answer, but Patricia had been handling her absence with grace and professionalism. Hi, Patricia. Is everything okay? I'm sorry to call so late, but I have some news. The board voted today about your leave of absence. Adriana felt her stomach tighten. What did they decide? They've approved an indefinite leave. Robert said that the company has been running smoothly with the interim leadership, and they want you to take whatever time you need. Really? Really? And Adriana? There's something else. The employee satisfaction surveys came back, and morale is actually higher than it's been in years. People are saying they feel more valued, more heard. Your leadership style was intense. The new approach is working. Adriana absorbed this information, surprised by how little it bothered her. That's good to hear. I'm glad they're doing well. When do you think you'll be ready to come back? I don't know. Maybe in a few months, maybe longer. Maybe I'll come back part-time, or maybe I'll step away entirely. I'm taking it one day at a time. Whatever you decide, we'll support you. The company owes you everything. No, Adriana said, looking around the apartment that had become her real home. I owe them everything. I owe my children everything. I owe Daniel everything. The company will be fine without me. My family needs me here. The five of them walked through Central Park on a crisp winter afternoon, the children bundled in colorful scarves and coats. They'd started taking weekend walks together, exploring different parts of the city as a family. Isabella was holding Adriana's hand, chattering about a book she was reading. Miguel was taking photos of interesting shadows and textures for his art project. Sophia was walking with Daniel, discussing a current events assignment for school. Look, Isabella pointed to a family of ducks swimming in the partially frozen pond. They're not afraid of the cold. They're built for it, Adriana explained. They have special feathers that keep them warm. Like how we're built for being a family? Isabella asked with the innocent wisdom of childhood. Exactly like that. They found a bench overlooking the pond, and Adriana pulled out her phone to take a photo. But instead of the posed, formal pictures she used to favor, she captured a candid moment. Miguel pointing out something to Sophia, Isabella leaning against Daniel, all of them laughing at something Miguel had said. I want to tell you all something, Adriana said, putting her phone away. I want to thank you for giving me a second chance. I know I didn't deserve it, and I know I had to earn it. You're still earning it, Sophia said, but her tone was gentle, not cutting. I know, and I'm grateful for every day I get to keep earning it. You don't have to keep thanking us, Miguel said. You're our mom. You're part of our family. That's just how it is now. Besides, Isabella added, families forgive each other. That's what families do. Sunday morning pancakes had become their new tradition. Adriana had learned to make them from scratch, and the kitchen was filled with the smell of vanilla and cinnamon. The children took turns helping, and even their failures, burnt pancakes, lumpy batter, had become part of the joy. I have something to tell you all, Adriana said as they sat around the table. I've decided to step down permanently from my position as CEO. The children looked up from their breakfast, processing this news. "What does that mean?" Isabella asked. "It means I'm not going back to work the way I used to. It means I'm going to find a new way to use my skills that lets me stay present in your lives." "What will you do instead?" Sophia asked. "I'm thinking about starting a foundation, something that helps families stay together, that provides support for parents who are struggling with mental health issues." "Like what you went through when we were babies?" Miguel asked. "Exactly like that. I want to help other parents get the help they need so they don't have to make the choices I made." "That sounds amazing," Sophia said. "You could help so many families. And you could still be our mom every day," Isabella added. "That's the plan." Daniel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you, for choosing us, for choosing yourself, for choosing what matters. This is what redemption looks like. Not a single moment of forgiveness, but 1,000 small choices to show up, to be present, to choose love over fear." Adriana didn't just say sorry. She changed her entire life to prove she meant it. What would you be willing to sacrifice for the people you love? Share your thoughts below, and remember to subscribe for more stories about the power of second chances. Evening had settled over Queens, and the family was scattered around the living room in comfortable chaos. Sophia was reading on the couch, Miguel was painting at the kitchen table, Isabella was building something elaborate with blocks, and Daniel was grading papers from his teaching job. Adriana was on the floor with Isabella, helping her build a castle for her toy princesses. It was the kind of ordinary moment that had once seemed impossible. A quiet evening at home, everyone doing their own thing but together. "Mom," Isabella said, carefully placing a turret on her castle. "Are you happy?" "I'm the happiest I've ever been," Adriana replied honestly. "Even without your big office and your fancy car?" "Especially without my big office and fancy car. Those things were just things. This is real life." "What's real life?" "This, right now. Sitting on the floor with you, building castles while your brother paints and your sister reads and your father works. This is everything I ever wanted." Isabella smiled and leaned against her mother's shoulder. "I love real life." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." As Adriana tucked Isabella into bed, her youngest daughter looked up at her with serious eyes. "Will you tell me a story?" Isabella asked. "What kind of story?" "A story about a princess who lost her way but found her way back home." Adriana smiled, understanding that Isabella was asking for their story. The story of their family's journey from brokenness to healing. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a princess who thought she had to choose between her crown and her heart. She chose the crown, and for many years, she ruled over a vast kingdom. But she was lonely, because she had left her heart behind with the people she loved most." "Was she sad?" Isabella asked. "She was very sad, even though she tried to pretend she wasn't. Until one day, she realized that no crown was worth more than her heart. So she left her kingdom and went back to the people she loved." "And did they forgive her?" "They did, because they loved her too. And they all lived happily ever after. Not because life was perfect, but because they were together." "I like that story," Isabella said sleepily. "I like it too. It's my favorite story." The apartment was quiet, the children asleep, Daniel grading papers in the bedroom. Adriana sat on the couch with a cup of tea, looking at the photos on her phone from their day in the park. 12 years ago, she had walked away from this life because she thought she wasn't enough. She thought her children deserved better than a mother who was struggling with depression and anxiety. She thought providing for them financially was more important than being present emotionally. She had been wrong about almost everything. The financial success had been hollow. The professional achievements had been meaningless. The recognition and power had been empty substitutes for the love she'd walked away from. But she'd been right about one thing: her children did deserve better. They deserved a mother who was present, consistent, and emotionally available. They deserved a mother who chose them every day, not just when it was convenient. She was learning to be that mother one day at a time. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. The Wall Street Journal wants to do a feature about your transition from CEO to full-time mother. They're calling it The Billionaire Who Chose Love Over Profit. Adriana smiled and typed back, "No interviews, no features, no publicity. Some stories are too precious to share with the world." She put her phone away and looked around the small apartment that had become her sanctuary. In the morning, she would help Sophia with her science project, drive Miguel to his art class, and teach Isabella to ride her bike. She would have lunch with Daniel and plan their weekend activities. She would be present for the ordinary moments that made up a life. She had traded a pharmaceutical empire for bedtime stories and math homework. She had exchanged a Manhattan penthouse for a Queens apartment. She had given up a billion-dollar company for the chance to be a mother. It was the best deal she'd ever made. Sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in the lives we touch and the love we choose to give. Adriana found out that you can't buy back time, but you can make the most of the time you have left. What legacy do you want to leave? What matters most to you when everything else is stripped away? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to share the story with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to choose love. Outside, Queens settled into the quiet of another winter night. Inside the small apartment, a family slept peacefully. Not because their story was over, but because they had learned that the best stories are the ones we write together, one ordinary, precious day at a time. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.